allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to introduce everybody. We've got our Administrator Schroeder to my far left, Commissioner Huxley. To my left, myself, Commissioner Gold, Commissioner Boyce, Council Huddle, and John Jesuit, our Administrative Assistant. First of all, let's talk about amendments to the agenda. I would like to move the presentations D before the public comments, because we've got the sheriff here and other people that need to get out. Okay, any other amendments to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to add to the agenda, which came to my attention this morning, that we have a travel budget. The commission travel budget has been exceeded, and I need to discuss that with the board. I don't feel it can wait till the next county board meeting on November 7th. So I would like, commissioner travel would be the agenda item.
Okay, so where do you want to put that? After the consent agenda, or how about let's make it 13, regular agenda, under F.
It'd be 12B or something like that, or whatever. So we already have a 13, Madam Chair.
Oh, there is?
So just call it item 12B.
Okay. Under regular agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but if it's after 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we stop wherever we are at 11.
Yep.
Okay, because the public hearings would take precedent
Right,
over that.
right.
Okay.
Any other amendments to the agenda? Commissioner Huxley?
I'd like to pull under the consent calendar E, pull items 3, 6, and 7 for separate comments.
Okay, we'll just put those right before F.
Okay.
Okay, any other amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, if I could get a motion to approve the agenda as amended, I would appreciate that.
Sure, I'd motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on, presentations, 5-year service award to Jeremy Crone.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sheriff Ward's Curry County Sheriff's Office. This morning we are here to honor Jeremy Crone for his 5 years of service with the county and the Curry County Sheriff's Office in Corrections. Corporal Crone actually has been with us for 5 years, like I said, and he's been a pillar in in his divisions. He was promoted to corporal this past year for his dedication and his hard work. We thought we had lost him a couple times looking for other work, but thank God he decided to stay. And so we're here today to give him a certificate for his 5 years of services, and I couldn't be more proud to have him as part of our organization. Jeremy? I'd like to say a few words there. Put you on the spot.
I just want to thank the commissioners for first approving me to work the first 5 years ago, and hopefully 5 more. So, or more.
10 more.
10, 20, we'll see.
Well, you're a youngster. You love the jail, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if I can just say a few words, I just want to give you a quick update on the fire incident. So it's not much different from the press release that I put out, but just to recap a little bit, Sunday night at 6:30, I get a call from my dispatch saying the fire blew up in Agnes, and the incident command is requesting that we take it to a level 3. Kind of surprised me because a week before I was talking to the incident command and said that he wanted to take us out of level 1 just to, because the fire was a non-issue at the time. And so when I heard this at 6:30 that night, I went directly to the fairgrounds, had a conversation with the new incident command, who had not taken over at that point. It had a couple hours to go, actually about an hour. They were taking over at 8 o'clock that night, and I was there about 7. showed us the fire lines and what was happening with the northeast winds up there, and spot fires were, going everywhere. So we decided we need to get up there immediately and get the Agnes Road people who were in the Oak Flat area and Spud Road area evacuated. We didn't believe that everybody was going to leave, but we had to at least notify them to get out. And so that's what we did. I took, I think there were 7 or 8 of my deputies, called them out off their time off, and go up there and start doing the evacuation. Oak Flat Road area all the way up through there and Spud Road, and then took also from Spud Road along the 33 Road, which is the Agnes Road, to Coon Rock Bridge, and made that into a level 3. Level 2 areas were from Coon Rock, Foster Bar, all the way to Lucas Lodge on the north side of the river. So at this point, I've been trying to work with the fire service to try to get the areas where Agnes RV and Cougar Lane on the north side of the river, between the Agnes Road and the river, back to a level 2, so we can have access in there for people to have meetings and things like that. Because right now, the people who stayed in their homes, if they come out, they're not allowed to go back in, because there's a lot of fire suppression services up there right now working on their homes and things like that. So that's at the point where we are right now. We'll know more today or tomorrow if that's going to happen. I need to get down to the cooperators meeting and have a little bit more information before I make that determination where I can take that one little area back to a level 2. So that's where we're at right now.
So can those folks get in and out to get food supplies and stuff?
Well, they can come out, but they can't go back in.
Oh, okay.
In a level 3 closure. That's just the rules the way they are. It's for their safety.
Yeah, I just know when I was level 3, I kind of got to go back and forth. So.
Well, unfortunately, that's, we don't have enough resources, and it's not really my job to block those roads off. We patrol those areas to make sure they're still safe, from looters and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I've had deputies up there every day and every evening, making sure that's is not happening. So they're patrolling that area. But I won't know until I have more information today from the Unified Command. Basically, they got the state fire marshals, the CFPA, and the Incident Command all working together to make sure we try to keep the fire away from the homes up there.
Okay, good. Thank you, Commissioner Boyce. You need to get your mic on.
Yeah. It was impressive.
Most intimidating thing I've ever seen. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Leah?
Good morning. Leah Seavey with Oasis Shelter Home, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I want to talk to you today because October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we participate this year in more activities than we ever have before. And so one of them is to come talk to you about who we are and what we do. I know you all know who we are and a little bit about what we do. So this will be probably pretty much a refresher for you. Do I need to advance it?
Yeah, so I think you can just use the page down, I think.
Okay. I just have a short PowerPoint here. This is our mission statement. Through shelter education and advocacy, we empower victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and resulting homelessness to achieve a life free from abuse. Yes, I have it memorized. I've been saying it for 15 years. I've been with the organization for a long time, since 2004 actually. And since then we've grown a lot. We have an outreach office in the Port of Gold Beach. We have not only our shelter, which the property we used to lease from the city of Gold Beach for $1 a year. This year they donated the property to us. I do think we are about $5 in arrears although the city says it's only 3, so we'll just keep that on the books for now. Our program, though, has been growing. We now have we rent a transitional house so that we have a place for some of our sheltered persons to go before they go back out into the community. We have dedicated staff that is specific for different kinds of things. We also make sure that people understand that we're victim-centered and offender-focused, so that means that we make sure that we provide services to victims in the way that they want them to be provided to them, and that we hold offenders accountable for their actions. So this is myself and my staff. I'm the director. Kara Koenig is our administrative assistant. Melanie Caldera is our sexual assault survivor advocate. She goes around and trains all of the medical personnel. She's also our DHS, Department of Human Services, co-located advocate. That means she spends part of her time in the Department of Human Services office and goes out on things like child welfare calls when child welfare thinks that domestic violence may be present in the home. She's also an ACEs master trainer. You've probably seen presentations about ACEs before. That's Adverse Childhood Experiences, and we've seen links between childhood experiences and adult onset diseases and illnesses and poor coping skills. Olivia Davis is our OVW, Office on Violence Against Women advocate, who's stationed at the courthouse. That's the grant that we have that pays for a deputy district attorney, Olivia's salary, and an investigator. So that's a big deal. That grant was new to us as of this month last year. She also does community projects, one of which is our Christmas program, which we're already starting to put together. It's one of the largest programs in the county. Gretchen is our newest staff person, and she's our shelter advocate. She also does outreach work, and that's really important because not everybody who needs our services is in the shelter. Folks who are out in the community who may have a place to live, maybe just moved here or had the means, the resources to either keep or maintain a place to live, still need our services. They need help with restraining orders. They need help with an occasional food box. They need to go to one of our workshops or support groups. So folks in the community, even though they may have a place to live, still may need our services. And we do have a on-call position open for our bilingual advocate. We used to have someone on call who was native language Spanish, so that's who we're looking for, as someone who can speak Spanish. So the definition of domestic violence is up on the screen there, but what I want to point out is that it goes beyond physical violence, which is horrible enough, but the psychological effects and coercion and controlling behavior is really something that a lot of people don't understand. And so I would urge you to educate yourself as much as possible. OASIS maintains a pretty active Facebook page where we're always putting articles that are written by the National Network to End Domestic Violence, the Oregon Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and other organizations. So this is a list of what abuse looks like. It probably will not come to anyone's surprise of what that list is. But this one is, I think, an important list because probably one of the most common things that people ask me that are in the community is, why do people stay in abusive relationships, or why do they go back? This is a long list, but there's actually probably more reasons than what you just see up here. But the top one on the far left is fear. That is the basis for most of the other ones. We also put out a monthly wish list, and we're promoting a training that we have coming up. Yes?
The blank slide, there's one more after that.
Oh, is there one more after that? Oh, our services, yes. And this is not an exhaustive list, although you can see we do a lot of different things, which for our small staff, I think is pretty amazing. I've been with, like I said, I've been with the organization a long time. Olivia and Melanie have both been with the organization just over 5 years, and then the Koenig sisters have been with OASIS since the beginning of this year. Okay, there we go. Thank you for pointing that out. So in your packet, I think you got the save the date notice. It's a training that we have that we're having people save the date for in February. It's a strangulation awareness and response training, and I'm going to explain why this is important to our community. So a lot of people, when you talk about strangulation, or if you have a discussion with your friends about strangulation, you might inadvertently hear the word choking being used. Choking is when you swallow a chicken bone the wrong way. Strangulation is when somebody wraps their hands around your neck. It's an important distinction because strangulation is a crime, and it's often reduced in plea bargaining. So strangulation, as we know on the continuum scale of lethality, is one step before homicide. So it's really important that we don't reduce strangulation in plea bargain negotiations. In addition, law enforcement can charge for strangulation in a lot of cases where they previously hadn't been. But to their credit, through the training that our advocates have been doing there and their own training, they've been charging strangulation more and more often, but we want to see everyone get on board with this very potentially lethal crime. Everyone from medical personnel to the law enforcement, any first responder, to the court system. And so that's why we're putting this training on. You see all these little icons at the bottom, these logos at the bottom are all the folks who are involved in this training. We'll have the Assistant Oregon State Attorney General come down and talk about the legalities of strangulation and the crimes that can be charged around that. We'll be having the director of the Oregon Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence come down and talk about the neurobiology of trauma. We'll have our own Mary Reyna, who is a nurse with a bunch of letters after her name at the hospital, to talk about the physical part of strangulation and what actually happens and how long the symptoms can present themselves after one's been strangled. You can be strangled and not have any immediate symptoms and then keel over the next day. When the trachea is collapsed and the swelling occurs, then asphyxiation can happen actually up to 72 hours later. So it's a really serious crime, so I wanted to bring that to your attention and be sure and share that with everyone.
And Leah?
Yes.
The DA has asked that if there's no objections from the county board, that he would like to put the county logo as a sponsoring agency for this particular training. And if the board doesn't have any objections to that, we would work that out with Leah.
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you for putting that in there because their logo is missing from this, so that's excellent. The other thing in your packet is a blog that we wrote for All Care Health that has a lot of great information in it. I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. Since I'm in the business of educating people, I thought I would just toss that in there. And then what you didn't get in your packet is our wish list, which we put out. We try to put it out monthly. Advertisement, if you will, for our Christmas program on the other side. So if it's okay, I would like to give these to the commissioners and ask if you have any questions for me.
I just have one question. Do you have a maximum length of stay for the participants?
You know, that's a great question. Officially, we are a 1-week shelter, but in reality, the average stay is about 41 days. So the discrepancy is that if you come into the shelter and you just need a place to lay your head for a short time and you don't have any desire to sort of better your situation, and that happens, you know, someone sometimes just needs respite, then you can stay for a week and do that. But if you want to stay longer, then we expect that you will enroll in our programs and participate in various things and do all of those things that you need to do to better your situation, and then you can virtually ask for extensions for up to 6 months.
Oh, okay, good. Commissioner Boyd?
Thanks, Madam Chair. The work you did to put together the February meeting, that is greatly appreciated. And I know that the great number of hurting people that you help, you and your staff, that's got to be harder every week that you work on that. And you know, you gave a little report there at the local public safety coordinating group, and I'm sitting between two of the police chiefs. One of them's my age, and I leaned over and I said, would we have been having this conversation 10 years ago on strangulation? And it's a bittersweet thing, and the public awareness is great, but it's a bitter thing, and knowing that it's an issue that we have to deal with. So thank you very much for your work, Leah.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, so I'm
Leah?
going to hand these to you. And feel free to leave the leftovers on the table if you'd like. Thank you.
Okay, we've got public comments. Carl King.
Carl King, Nasika Road. I regret having to speak this morning. I understand that there was discussion on social media yesterday and last night concerning Curry County Voices. My media is down, so I wasn't able to see it. But I just wanted to clarify that Curry County Voices is a nonprofit funded by Rotary grants, operated by the Gold Beach Rotary Foundation as a 501c3. It is not a government agency. It does not have any responsibility or was ever asked to be responsible for making emergency announcements. In fact, our permit from the Board of Commissioners allows us to be on the channel only 3 days a week, and currently we are on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings. We don't have 24/7 access to the channel. We don't have 24/7 employees to provide access to the channel. If we were asked by a county employee to put an emergency announcement on it, that county employee would be violating the permit that you had us sign, the agreement for our permit. I'm not sure why people think we were responsible for making these announcements, and I don't know who all was involved in the discussion, because as I say, I didn't have access to my internet last night. Curry County Voices is a group of volunteers who produce programming of government and educational benefit to the citizens of Curry County. We now have 15 programs in process. 12 of them, I believe, have been on the channel for the last 2 weeks and will be on the channel again this week. We have 3 programs in process. They include the League of Women Voters forums that are 2 hours long. They include some 3-minute and 5-minute short subjects, such as one dealing with Main Street program here in Gold Beach. They are produced by volunteers. We are solely responsible for the cost of producing those programs. No county general funds are spent on our doing that. And again, I just wanted to clarify that so that there isn't any misconception out there in the general public as to who we are and what we do. I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Huxley?
One, let's say a contradiction in your comments. You mentioned that you heard that the social media things had occurred, and yet you then followed by saying your internet was down and you didn't see any. How do you know
I was waved down as I drove out of my driveway by a neighbor who had seen and been part of the discussion.
So it's hearsay?
It's hearsay
Okay.
for me.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
it's from a reliable source, and frankly, one of the 9 people who are volunteering their time producing programming for Curry County Voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. David Barnes? Okay. Could I get someone to give a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 4 and 5? Commissioner Huxley?
Commissioner Huxley, yeah, I'll motion to approve consent calendar items 4 and 5.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then we're going to be talking about item 3 from the consent agenda, adopt minutes of September 19th, 2018 general meeting.
I had one question and one comment on the minutes. I know the last minutes, I don't remember what the date was, but the
Mhm.
last minutes showed who had created or drafted the minutes. These did not on the 19th. I would like to just, if we can give direction to Administrator Schroeder to all future minutes,
Just say submitted
have
by.
them submit and put whoever drafted the minutes down at the bottom of the
Right.
minutes.
I don't know what it means when it says minute clerk Jesuit.
I'm not sure, but at the bottom of the last one, it showed who created, and that was still a question I had. Did he draft those minutes? But it was shown clearly at the bottom of the last minutes who had drafted them. So if we could do that, just as a
Mr. Schroeder?
procedure.
Ultimately, the minutes come through me, and I give the ultimate approval on them. So I review them as a final one, and I offer edits to my staff. And so at the end of the game, ultimately, I'm responsible.
Okay. So could we just have submitted by, so we, apparently, is it important to know who wrote them?
I think it is. I think
Okay.
for archival purposes, I think it is.
Okay, I think that's a little thing. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. And I did see that in going through some of my notes, there were some comments, pretty substantial comments that were not put on at the beginning of the meeting minutes and comments, I think constructive criticism comments, but constructive from Commissioner Boyce, and there was no mention of those. So that's the reason that I asked that they be pulled, because I would vote not to approve with those critical comments missing.
Okay. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. I'm going to oppose the minute system we have. As I've expressed many times in the past, just the sheer expense and time on this is just more than I think is justified. So from here on out, as it stands right now anyway, I'm not going to support the written minutes. I think we're well within our. Yeah, I've already said it, so I really don't need to repeat. And that what Mr. Huxley just communicated is a perfect example why the video is our clear direction, and the recovery of accurate word for word every meeting. Thank you.
I'm not sure whether you totally understood the ramifications of that if we don't have written minutes.
Yes, we've been down this road so many times.
Well, what happens is the auditor is going to have to put in a lot of extra time, which is certainly more expensive than John Jesuit or the other gal that does the minutes.
But I thought we made it an exception there that for those meetings when it would relate to the budget, that was a different deal. It's the everyday minutes that are costing us a lot of staff time that I don't think personally is necessary. So on the audit, if we want to go back and have the written minutes then, I think we covered that, didn't we?
I think I'm going to disagree because
Okay.
every meeting has something to do with the budget and financial issues, so I'm going to disagree on that one.
Okay.
So, bottom line, do we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the September 19th general meeting?
I will motion to adopt with additional comments from Commissioner Boyce included to reflect what actually occurred.
Okay, and was that a long narrative?
No,
or?
it was a very short narrative. He had taken issue with Administrator Schroeder and the need or request. He requested an investigation, or said that investigation was needed in regards to the building official subject, hiring of the building official. And I think that was important comment to note in the minutes. So if something to that effect is noted, I will motion to approve.
So do you have any comments about that, Commissioner Boyce?
No. Video is a great, reliable record.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes as having this addition?
I said I would motion to approve with that addition.
Okay,
That's what
so
I
do we
said.
have a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, Mr. Huxley, if you would just send me that information, and then we'll amend the minutes and put that into the record.
Okay.
So he's going to write the minutes? His interpretation?
No, his
I'll
verbiage.
give you the video time. Okay, I'll give you the
Perfect.
time, and then you can put it into.
He had one sentence he wanted to add.
Basically
to it,
one
and that's what the
sentence.
motion was, that the minutes would be approved with addition of this one sentence that he wanted added. And so that's how the motion read, so I didn't write down the sentence that he had.
Thank you, Administrator Schroeder.
Okay, and then the next one was clear ballot tabulation software loan order. Commissioner Huxley, you brought that out.
Yes. I had a question. On the way it was worded, and that was what, 10-6 or E6. It on the dated 10/8 on this, it referred to a principal amount of $82,178 and an interest of I assume an annual interest at
Right.
4.035% per annum, and 5 annual installments. But it says that there's interest, and yet it shows a principal, and it shows the total amount paid as the same as the principal. So I'm not quite sure where
So what
what
you're
the
saying
interest
is
is, or where did it come from, or what is it? You know,
Looks
it's
like
either
interest comes to
principal and
about
interest, or it's principal, and it refers to principal, and then it refers separately to interest.
It looks like the interest comes to about $16,000.
So.
Okay, do you know what?
don't
What
have any
happens is
idea.
these payments, this would be principal and interest included, because the payments, I took that times 5, come up to
That's correct. It says
$82,178.
payments. That's correct. So what's the interest? Or is it principal and interest?
That's principal and interest.
And then the question should be, what's the interest? Is it viable? Does it make sense to do the purchase that way? What is the interest that we're paying? Typically on a loan, it's separated. You have principal, you have
I know what you're saying,
and it's-
yeah.
Or any loan I ever saw, separated principal and interest, even if it was a mortgage. You know, the principal declines a little bit every year in the early years. The interest is very large
Right.
in the early years.
Okay, so what you're saying is you don't know for sure what the exact principal is and what the interest
No,
is.
I think
so.
it should be. I think it should be documented for the record. What it
Okay.
is.
How about if we table this till we get Shelley or Renee to come over? They said they were busy with the elections today. They weren't sure if they had time to come over. They did say that it's imperative to get this signed and back to them today, because the agreement with the state, the interest is going to go up if we don't do it today.
Yeah, I knew that, so.
Because they thought basically just the administrator could sign it, but so far we haven't developed a policy concerning contractual, changing the contractual signing authority of the administrator. So the board needs to sign this. So I can send a message over to Renee to see if she can come over.
Excuse me.
Did you?
Commissioner Huxley?
Well, I saw County Council put his hand up first before I did, but I think.
Sure, I have a question so it sounds like we're tabling this. As long as we're tabling it, here's my other issue, I think, in addition to the interest that might be worth looking into. I'm looking at page 11 of this agenda item, which is an exhibit to the contract. And it says Schedule A, voting system and pricing. And it talks about hardware, software, and then services. And then it gives various discounts and whatnot. But the total is $82,178 of hardware, software, and services. And that's the amount of the loan, and I've...
Including
so-
the interest.
Right, but, well, it doesn't list interest on here at all.
No, it doesn't.
But the other odd part is, we're borrowing money for services, which I don't know that I've seen that before. So I think there could be some follow-up between the county and the Secretary of State on just kind of fine-tuning this agreement. So that's just, those are just, as long as you're doing that, I'd look into that issue as well.
Commissioner Huxley?
And to Administrator Schroeder's comment that there's no policy, I think there is a policy, but it's limited to $10,000 that the administrator has authority to sign.
And this is probably an example of why that policy's in place.
Yes.
Okay, so bottom line, we need to get in touch with Renee so that she can get this.
Yep, I sent her
Or Delaney.
an email, and so we can just move on and
Okay.
come back to this issue, and she comes over.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, master payroll amendment number 1. Commissioner Huxley, you pulled that off?
Again, just a request, to do during the meeting and then to vote separately. And I pulled it for that
Okay.
reason also. Because it was clear that the 5 or 6 pages, I don't have it in front of me, of the actual master payroll was changed, and I'm assuming the Excel spreadsheet was changed. So if a updated Excel spreadsheet could please be, or direction to Administrator Schroeder, if he could send a copy or have a copy of that sent to the commissioners, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with
Okay.
Yes.
that. Is that, no, the blue stuff is open positions, so.
Correct.
And Julie, the HR director, personnel officer is here. Excuse me. Thank you, Julie Swift. I heard her say that it should have been in the packet. I don't know that there's an actual Excel spreadsheet, but there are some printouts.
That's correct. It was a PDF, so that's why I'm asking for the Excel, Julie.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the master payroll?
I'll motion to approve the master payroll.
Do we have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
I think we've discussed it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. Regular agenda, appointing 2 persons to the CRTF Citizens Review Task Force. Maybe you can speak to this, Administrator Schroeder?
So we have 2 applicants for the Citizens Revenue Task Force. One applicant had sent his application in on the 24th. The application was actually just misfiled in the wrong pile for applicants for different county committees, so it didn't make it to the last board meeting. The other applicant verbally committed to the committee, but the application came in after our packet and meeting time. This brings a total to 8 members for this committee. The first meeting will be on October 23rd at 2 p.m. in the Blue Room, and I'll be sending out a packet of material hopefully tomorrow. But I've asked staff to help with previous revenue generation initiatives to the citizens and other historical documents. And we'll be holding this meeting as a public meeting down in the Blue Room and taking minutes just like a planning commission meeting would be. So with that, I would seek approval from the county board for the 2 applicants that are in your packet.
Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I think both these applicants would be very effective and contribute greatly. So yes, I'll make that motion that we approve their appointment.
Okay.
I was second for comment.
Okay. Discussion. Commissioner Huxley?
You have mentioned, and the names are not important, okay, that one had sent it within the extended or initial or extended time frame. I think we had both.
Yeah.
As far as deadlines. The other had given a verbal commitment but had not. Was the application sent in before the deadline?
I would say the second applicant did not put in the application by the deadline, and I'm asking, he basically came in the office. I think he'd be a good addition to the committee, and so
Who's that?
I'm I'm asking them to be added to that. So the other applicant had put down for the committee to be on the Transit Lodging Tax Committee, and we misfiled that under a different thing. And his intention, once we recommunicated with it and realized he was missed, was that he'd be on the Citizens Revenue Task Force.
So it was submitted within the
Yes.
deadline?
Yes.
Okay, my comment then is that, and again, it's an issue that I've had with applications over many, many years with the county, in that you put things out, you sign deadlines, and then they're changed for a myriad of reasons. We have voter deadlines to sign up to be a registered voter. We have deadlines to send in vehicle registration. There's a lot of deadlines that we have. If we don't meet them, we don't vote, or we have to, have consequences for late registration on other things. Therefore, I do not support this. The one, whoever it is, it's not important for that reason.
The one that was turned in after the
we
fact?
either meet deadline. This has been going on for a year now, almost. So that's my reason for that I will vote no.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought I heard you first say he didn't. We're talking about Brian Grumman here. It doesn't matter. He wouldn't be bashful about having his name. He contributes a great deal to this county and community. You said he did not get his application in time?
That's correct.
We know he was out of town. Okay, we know he's very determined and very dedicated to participate. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to stay with my original motion there, if we may.
Okay, so we had a motion, we had a second, we've had discussion. Call for the question.
No.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next, going to the Spectrum Charter contract renewal. Administrator Schroeder.
Okay, Madam Chair, this is a 5-year renewal for our internet provider known as Charter Communications, also has Spectrum's in there. The new contract will result in faster speeds and a saving of $269 per month for the next 5 years for the county overall. In your packet, you'll see on the first page on the AGRS the existing service and the price per month, and the new service and the price on that also. So you can see there's a savings on there. In addition to this, there would be a opportunity after this contract is signed to upgrade the road department to a fiber line to get to the road department. We've been struggling with the road department with the speed down there. They currently get internet service from a microwave transmission from the internet service provided here from the courthouse. And anytime there's wind or rain or movement or misalignment of those two microwave dishes, their service goes away. Talking on the telephone, it breaks up. They basically have to modify if somebody's downloading a file. So besides the benefit of just increased service for less price for the rest of the county, this will provide the opportunity for us to get stable internet service for the road department down on Hunter Creek.
Did they indicate what the cost on that would be?
Yes, and I'll be bringing that back to the board after. We basically could not do them simultaneously. They wanted this contract back and signed, and then they come back. But I do have the amount, and I believe it was $430 a month. They initially wanted $11,000 for an installation charge, and we basically bargained down to $430 a month with a $250 installation charge for a 5-year period for them. So that I'm very supportive of that and looking forward to helping out the heavy GIS and other information the road department uses. They are a critical need for upgrade for their internet service.
Well, I know in talking to Richard, he was saying that there is a lot of downtime and we have employees that aren't able to function properly because of this. So
this is
I would be in favor of
this
that.
is the first step to get there.
Okay. Other comments, Commissioner
Well,
Boyce? Sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry. Houseboy. I'll just lay down and die.
Would you do that for the camera? No.
Well,
That's just not an acceptable reason to die. My goodness.
I'm just full of
Thank you,
mistakes,
That
so
won't
get
be a-
over
that
it.
That won't be a worker comp issue, will it?
No,
Hey,
it'd be a sad
there's an
day.
idea.
Now, these are questions. This has nothing to do, again, question, with the PEG system, with the charges to which is now Spectrum, I guess, instead of Charter, to the individuals who subscribe. It has nothing to do with that.
This is all an internal service that we're buying for our internet service.
But we did have a contract with, another question, with Charter originals for years back, go back to whatever, 2000 and something, for a contract for these same types of services, correct?
Yes, this is a renewal of a contract.
Where does it, now I know on the agenda routing slip it says 5-year, but the agenda routing slip is simply an agenda routing slip. On the first couple of pages it shows contract terms, but when you go into page 1 of 25, when it really gets into, I didn't see anywhere in this 25 pages where it referenced the actual term. It goes into, on number 3, the order term. They have a service agreement term. This is quite a contract, to say the least. And an order term, and it says if no initial order term is specified in a service order. Now, are these first pages service orders that show the contract term
First few
in
pages,
here?
yeah, the first.
Before the actual commercial terms?
Yeah, so this is the customer service order, and so this would be your contract basically, and then this would be where we would sign it, and then after that, we agree by signing that we acknowledge that we will abide by their service agreements, and Mr. Hall, maybe you can expand on that, because you actually read those 2 additional documents you added to the packet.
Commercial terms of service.
And my last question on this, because on the order term, it says if no initial order term is specified in a service order, the initial term is 12 months, but then they get into, can they increase these rates after 12 months? You're on a month-to-month basis or not? Because it's referenced in the pages before the actual commercial terms. Are these fixed rates, or are they subject to increases after 12 months on a month-to-month basis?
It's my understanding that this is a fixed term for 5 years.
Okay.
Do you have anything to say about that, Council Huddle?
Sure, it just says upon expiration of the initial order, it automatically renews for successive 1-month terms. So it looks like we could be more expressly clear that it is 5 years. And I'm looking on, this is page 14 of the packet documents with the general terms, and it talks about the order term, and I think
Page 1 of 25.
Commissioner Huxley referred to this, page 1 of 25 under the commercial terms of service, but in your packet it's page 14, and it talks about the order term, and it says the 12 months, and then upon expiration it automatically renews. So again, and you would have 30 days expiration unless either Spectrum elects not to renew. So technically, even though this is 5 years, we say it's 5 years, this would continue unless terminated with 30 days notice. So this could be for 5 years, this could be for longer. But we would have the option in 5 years of terminating with 30 days notice under this term.
Commissioner Boyce?
Just, Madam Chair, can we recognize the sheriff? I just want to make sure we're news that we're anticipating,
Oh, okay.
please.
We'll just interrupt this message to...
Well, actually, Commissioners, Administrator Schroeder asked me to stop by after the meeting and give me kind of update. The updates that I want to give is what I expected. Is we're going to keep everything south of the Agnes Road, which is a 33 road, into level 3. Anything north of the road, which encompasses Agnes RV and Cougar Lane, will be in a level 2. So Agnes Road is in a level 2. Anything south of, any properties south of that, including Oak Flat and Spud Road, is going to be still in level 3. And we'll make that notification at 3 o'clock or noon today and get that taken care of. So.
Okay,
I
great.
missed the meeting. Really not much in the way of fire growth today.
The fire that was over on Spud Road, they contained it basically at 15 acres. They're pretty concerned about a couple spot fires that are up above Oak Flat in the House Creek area. I think there's roughly 130 acres that it's burned, and they kind of grew together. They're getting a lot of fallout from the fire going downhill, like stumps that burn and then catch on fire down below. But they're hoping to get that lined today. The other spot fires, there's about 7 of them. They pretty much lined, so they're doing pretty good. We just can't drop that from a level 3 to level 2 because of the fire dangers, and it's obvious why.
Any word on aviation today?
It's still pretty smoky up there, but they do get some more aircraft up there, more boots on the ground, so they're working pretty good on and doing a pretty good job getting it contained.
One more question. Any word on Shasta Costa, headed north?
I think those were lined, and they're mopping them up.
There was 2 that, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's 2 that they were.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sheriff, very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Huxley?
So just for confirmation or clarification then, County Council, do you see this as a fixed?
We're done with you. We're back to Spectrum.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're all baffled.
I can tell you, but
Well, go ahead. I mean, is this a fixed rate for 5 years on these rates? Because we're talking a couple $1,000s a month.
Right, and so it's technically fixed for 12 months, and then it renews automatically, and it says either Spectrum or customer elects to non-renew. So really, to make it a true 5 year, so this continues until terminated after 12 months. To make it a true 5 year, we would just change order term and say it's 60 months on page 14. So I wasn't involved in the negotiations with Charter, but if that's the intent, it could be clarified.
Okay.
And it should be.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we have a motion? Commissioner Boyce, did you have another comment?
Well, I'm certainly in favor of the additional 2,000. I'm a little confused why it's not in the supplemental budget, though, because it's a calendar year, I presume.
Well, it's all the details aren't. What are we talking about? The thing we're supposed to sign today?
Are we on the Brant Media?
No.
Not even close.
No, we're on the Spectrum.
Oh, if I could, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, and for the commissioners, for the public, there is a clarification that it is a 60-month contract term, and that's found on page 4 of your packet, which if you look at it, says newly revised services and monthly charges, and it says contract term 60 months. And that's on, again, page 4 of the packet of this agenda item, and it's also found on the other pages. So it was clarified in the ordering. If you take a look there, you have 60-month contract terms at these rates. So that's on page 3 and 4 of the document. If you see that.
Yeah, those were the ones that I referenced before where it shows that, but that's before the contract terms, but that would suffice in your opinion.
Yes, the general rule is that the specific governs the general. So the general contract terms were their what we call boilerplate,
Okay.
and then this is a specific term to show 60-month period.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with it as it's in the packet and been negotiated by the county administrator.
Okay.
And that's why you earn the big bucks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Spectrum Charter contract renewal?
Chair, I'd motion to approve as presented.
Okay.
I think I'm on the right one now. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will second.
Okay. I think we've cussed and discussed enough. Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, amending Brant Media contract. Administrator Schroeder.
So Brent Media is contract for a total of $19,900 for services during the calendar year, January 1 through December 31st. It's come to our attention they are about to run over their contract amount for 2018. We are recommending that we increase their contract by an additional $2,000 to cover the remaining portion of this calendar year going through December. Service is billed out by the minute for recording, streaming, and programming the BOC meetings. It's not necessarily to say they will use the $2,000, but whatever they actually bill, whatever we utilize. The reason it is not a budget amendment at this time is because our budget, as you well know, goes till June 30th. And so when we go through our actual use and our actual utilization of this service, we may come to find in March or April that we have to do a budget amendment because we've run over, or we're anticipating running over the budgeted amount for our fiscal year versus the calendar year for the contract, if that makes sense.
So in other words, the contract is for the calendar year, but our budget is for fiscal year.
That's correct.
So that's why we have the discrepancy.
Yes, and we've used up their, we're coming to the end of their contract
Right.
as far as utilization.
I totally understand, but I was trying to clarify for the audience.
But just,
Yeah, Commissioner Huxley.
okay, but their contract that they're talking about for this additional 2,000, their calendar year contract runs through just December 31st. So the
Correct.
2,000 is to cover through December 31st.
That's correct.
Then it would pick up on this year's fiscal year budget, which was separately appropriated. during the
So we'll be
budget
running a
meetings.
new contract, and they actually have an additional ask of
Okay.
an additional $800 for labor to install something. I can't remember. John, do you remember what that was?
It's a transmission device that allows us to transmit the type of signals that we're using. It has to do with the difference between digital and analog and this, that, and the other, but it's an item that's going to allow us to get the signal down to Crescent City and back.
And so they wanted to add that to this same issue here, but we thought that we would just put it into, there's no real timing issue on it, so we thought we'd just put it into the new contract, which will be effective January 1st.
So we'll be increasing our viewership? Is that the reason for this, or I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
we're getting overloaded with people watching us.
I think it's because of Curry County Voices.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Well, maybe
I'm-
maybe
Sorry,
they'll step
that
up
was
to the
tongue-in-cheek.
plate.
That was tongue-in-cheek. Tongue-in-cheek. That was a jest. That was humor, just for the record. Sorry.
Commissioner Boyce?
Just so I understand here, 19.9, the 2018 budget, so you're going to increase that by 800 for the 2019 budget.
So the only issue we're discussing now is the $2,000 for the increased actual utilization of the time it takes to produce this and have Charles come over and stuff like that. So that's all we're discussing now. We did bring up that, I did bring up that they had an additional ask, but John Huddle and I are going to work that into the next contract, which will
That's
be...
where I thought you were talking
Yep,
about
yep.
2019.
And that contract will come back to you for approval sometime in December, I would imagine, or the first part of
Okay.
January.
I understand, thank you.
Council Huddle?
So tying them both together, the pool of funds for that contract for the next fiscal year perhaps will be reduced by $2,000. In other words, if we pay this $2,000 in this board of our budget year for that fiscal year, the first 6 months of that next contract, there may not be $2,000 available in that pool of funds to.
So what you're
Is
saying,
that-
Mr. Huddle, is we need to have shorter meetings?
I was just going to say that. How,
Perhaps.
That's
And I'll stop-
recommendation.
Take the words
I will
out of my
stop
mouth.
talking then, but regardless, it's a zero sum on the money.
I
so
prefer
bottom
you
line,
not to
time
stop
is
talking.
money. Commissioner Huxley?
But where are this is going to result in this is a question, it's going to result in a supplemental budget? Yes or no?
Possible, but we won't know that till next spring. We're well within our budget amount right now. The question is, when we look at the utilization, come February, March, or April, we may say, we anticipate running out of money. We're going to have to do a supplemental budget to cover the cost of producing this, but we're not going to face that decision until probably late winter, early spring.
There's two things that limit our total payments to Brant Media. One is a budget that's done from June to June, and the other is a contract that caps the amount not to exceed. So we're reaching the contract cap but not the budget cap because our June to June figure.
Correct.
So and as Administrator Schroeder says, whether there's a supplemental budget would depend on if we run out of money in the budget period, not this contract cap. We're addressing the contract cap only now.
Okay.
And by addressing this contract cap now, the observation I just offered up was that it may, as Administrator Schroeder said, result in a budget limitation next year. But we're facing no budget limitation, just a contract limitation right now.
Thank you.
Because they project to exceed the hours of programming that they're producing for us under this contract.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve amending the Brant Media 2018 renewal contract?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
I think we've discussed it enough. Call for the question?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Sorry, I jumped the gun on that.
Madam Chair, it's 11 o'clock.
I was just going to say that.
Yep.
So it is 11 o'clock, so we will go back to our regular agenda after that. We've got some public hearings. The first one is supplemental budget number 2, Veterans Services. Mr. Schroeder.
So as part of the increased funding from the state of Oregon for veteran services and counties, there was a provision that we are not aware of during the budget committee process that required the county appropriations to not decrease when state funding was increased. This supplemental budget will restore funding to the previous year's level per this requirement. So in short, you can't supplant money just because the state increased the amount of money, you can't supplant it and decrease the county contribution.
Okay, so that will affect our budget by how much? Was it 30,000?
Yes, that was an amount of 27.
Okay.
The budget 27,399. Is that what it is? Let's see. Oh, $37,000. So there's a memo. Came from Tony. Basically, the budget adjusted to add $37,000 back in funding, which allowed the county to receive the 2018-19 ODVA funding of the amount of $88,334. Tony also had, put down in his letter to the county board the different activities and utilizations of this money that we'll be adding back in. So the money will be utilized for the things which are dictated in that.
And it sounds like we really don't have any leeway on this simply because of that coming down from the state. That's my interpretation.
So Tony, could you come up to the...
Good afternoon, Board. Tony Gotti, Veteran Services. So yeah, what I understood is basically Luis Colstrom and Clark and I and Oregon Department of Veteran Affairs, we all sat down and talked at different times, and basically our goal was to decrease our budget if we could. ODBA said apparently that we couldn't do that. We have to continue having the same amount of funds moving forward. They're trying to expand the office, not decrease it. So basically what I was told by ODBA is when I get these funds, we have to do stand-down events, which we did one in Coos-Pay this last year, and there was roughly 500 vets that showed up to this event. We're actually planning on doing 2 here, one in Curry County, one in Del Norte, because Del Norte has a share of veterans that jump back and forth across the border. So our first one is November, our second one is June. It'll be the first time, to my knowledge, that Curry County's actually had an official stand-down, because usually we partner with Coos-Pay to do it. But the biggest issue is transportation, so we solved that problem. We'll be able to get veterans to come to our event here with that funding.
So what we'll do is we'll get the Voices to televise this, and then it will go down to Del Norte, so we'll have an excuse for
Most definitely.
adding that to our viewership.
Yes, sir.
So Tony, I have a question on the budget amount here. On the letter that you gave the county board, it talks about adding back $37,000 in funding.
Mm-hmm.
When I look upon the Exhibit A, I'm seeing a budget change of $27,399.
I believe that was the amount that we discussed in the room with
Okay, so $27,399.
Yeah, 27. I think it was a total.
That's the amount that was advertised
Correct.
and posted. So okay, so that's the amount. So okay, all right.
Commissioner Huxley?
Well, But in order to get the 27, there was also shown a decrease in each one of the grants of approximately $5,000. So there's your difference.
Grants.
It's showing the existing budget had budgeted $48,900, and I'm looking at the actual budget on page 86 of our approved budget, had approved for 2 different grants because there was
It's
the one
actually
additional grant that was equal.
Yeah, it's actually one, and what they've always done traditionally is split into 2 different categories. It all comes from Oregon Department of Education.
But because they're broken down on our budget in May, or approved budget for fiscal year 18-19, it was shown as 2 separate ones at approximately $49,000 each. But what is being shown, I don't understand why there, is that they're showing a reduction in the actual grant amounts on Exhibit A. That's where you're coming up with your 27 versus your 37.
Yes,
Of
I see that, yeah.
5,000, so I don't understand why are the grants being decreased then by...
Well, there was a one-time last year $10,000 increase for our county, and then there was also the lottery dollars. If you go to the year before, the actual budget the year before increased by $42,000, I believe. And this year it's actually
Correct.
increased from ODVA by another just under $1,000, I believe. It's $88,000 and change is the new number, but that never comes out till after the budget's built. So that's...
Well, it was 44, yeah, on the prior year.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And that has to do with the lottery dollars. And so the county's contribution, I don't have the figures in front of me, I apologize. I believe the county's contribution on the budget this year was $13,000 and change, roughly, after we decreased it, correct? So
I can't tell from the approved budget.
I believe it's $13,000 and change.
You know, it's showing the adopted budget for the prior year was $44,000, 22 and 22. It's showing for this year it was roughly 50 and 50, or for 100,000.
Not from the county.
I'm sorry, roughly 49 and 49.
Not from the county.
For 98.
From ODVA.
Correct.
Yeah, so the county's contribution was roughly $13,000, if I remember correctly. That's what we're trying to increase, is put it back to the previous years.
I'm not seeing that. Oh, okay, yeah, okay, you're just going to the bottom line as
Correct, the
far as
county's
the
contribution.
contribution was 12,773,
Correct.
or 13. So I'm still not sure why the change on Exhibit A of $4,800 on, or $4,801 on each of the grants.
Because there was a one-time fee there was a one-time grant last year from Oregon Department of Veteran Affairs for roughly $10,000 on top of the lottery dollar increase. This year we didn't get that. It was a one-time.
But we
That would be
budgeted
roughly
it, but we
10 grand.
didn't get it? Is that what you're saying?
We did. Last year.
Last
Not this
year, but not this year.
Correct.
But it
Not
looks
this
like,
year.
did we budget it and
year?
not get it?
Correct. We did not get it.
Okay.
That was something that we wouldn't find out till after our budget here at the county was
Okay,
approved. ODVA
but
came
we
with their
did
own-
budget it, but it turned out we didn't
Correct.
receive it.
Correct. We're only getting the lottery dollars.
Okay. Okay.
So ODVA's budget's about a month comes out a month after ours.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments or questions of Tony? Okay, this is a public hearing, so does any of the public wish to speak to this issue? Carl King?
Carl King, the Seeker, a footnote. Tony and I are meeting next week to discuss programming on Curry County Voices with the Veterans Services, as well as an interview show where a student or more students at Brookings Harbor High School interviews a vet in a piece called Meet Your Vet. So yes, we look forward to working with Tony and putting veterans-oriented programming on our 3 days on Channel 182.
Good. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the supplemental budget number 2, Veterans Services?
I'll move, Madam Chair.
A second?
I would second
Okay,
for comment.
okay, discussion?
So you're going to, so the public comment's now closed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, that was my question.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to approve the supplemental budget number 2, Veteran Services. Call for the question.
Aye.
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 You can breathe a sigh of relief now, Tony. Okay, next is the amendment to Ordinance Article 7, adding road funds. Division 1, adding road funds. Council Huddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I start with this, I missed an agenda amendment earlier. We mentioned there were 4 public hearings noticed at 11 o'clock, but then one of them is moved to 1 o'clock, which is the, I think, flood management ordinance. The other one that should be at 1 o'clock is also the road vacation, because in the order that we wrote up.
Actually, that's listed here under 1 o'clock on the agenda.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
So, thanks very much. Then I will go into this item. This is the, we talked about, I presented the proposed changes at a presentation in the last general meeting, was directed to bring this back. And so there is just the, this is item 14 in your agenda, and there's a memo on page 2 of that that talks about, we had an existing ordinance, Article 7, which allowed us, Division 1, which allowed us to loan county funds to public service districts in our county. And what we've done is, and then in 2017 there was a House Bill 3435, I think sponsored by Representative David Brock Smith, and that allowed us to loan road funds to taxing districts. So what we're trying to do with this amendment to our existing ordinance is to change public service district to taxing district and allow, and that existing ordinance set up a fund to be budgeted annually for loans to other districts. And what this allows us to do is to include in that fund, in addition to the funds that were previously allowed, road funds, which have been described as federally sourced road fund, into that existing ordinance and funding source. So the other changes, so we changed public service district to taxing district. Then we also created some standards for applications. The existing standard was if the board determines it's in the public interest, but from the old prior ordinance. The new House Bill 3435 said that applicants would need to show their tax revenues and a showing of their existing payment obligations, which is kind of like an income and expense statement. In the presentation that we gave to the board, we talked about other qualifications for lenders, so we've included those. The reason we have the qualifications in there is to address essentially security, liquidity, and rate of return, which are the classic 3, besides legality, the classic other factors that we look at when managing public funds. And then in this ordinance, we address security in at least 2 ways. We create the qualifying standards, and then we require a security interest in either the project or the assets subject of the loan. And then we also have enforcement mechanisms, and the enforcement mechanism we're putting in this ordinance is that we could, when it comes time for us to distribute tax revenues to these taxing districts, we could withhold offsets for arrearages under the loan payments, if there are any, as well as the other traditional mechanisms. And then liquidity is addressed by loan term and the payment schedule. So the state public investing laws typically limit investment terms to roughly 18 months. Some investments up to 3 years. The House bill allowed the loans to be made up to 20 years. The proposed ordinance proposes a 5-year maximum term, and again, the payment schedule is proposed to be monthly. You saw earlier we had a loan with the Secretary of State where they proposed a quarterly payment system. Again, the actual document, each loan would be through an intergovernmental agreement loan document, so the terms, this ordinance would restrict any board from loaning beyond 5 years, but the agreement could go within that 5 years, 18 months
3 years, what have you, and then the payment schedule proposed to be monthly, but perhaps the agreement could change that. And then liquidity, we address liquidity. That's keeping our road fund available to us to use for, needs that we have. So we would limit how much of the road fund would go into the taxing district loan fund. And here, roughly 10%. So for instance, if the road fund is 20 million from these federal sourced available funds, then the loan fund, including outstanding road fund loans, would contain no more than 2 million in road funds. So in other words, if our road fund was 20 million and we had a $1 million loan out there, then you would include that in calculating the 10% cap on road funds going in there. Then 90% of our road funds would be available to us for liquidity purposes. And then as for rate, I think you saw in the Secretary of State agreement, they were proposing a 4-point-something% rate, and we're proposing here in this ordinance 4% above the rate that we return in the public investment pool. So there's other changes, clarifying requirement for hearings, and we also have created in here a management review team, for lack of a better word, that consists of the county administrator, county council, the treasurer, and the finance, the county accountant. So really, that's all I've had. The board's seen this. If there's no other questions, we could open for a public hearing.
Do we have any questions of the board? Commissioner Boyce?
Two things real quick. You just mentioned, rewinding a little bit, that you referenced as federal funds, and does that get into the confusion or discussion we've had in the past about, is it state funds controlled or is it federal funds? And you remember when we had the discussion, actually the law that was passed for the 5 depressed counties, Southwest Oregon, and there was some question if that would be approved or who would be the precedent there, the federal or the state. That's my first question.
So that question is answered specifically by the 2017 House Bill 3435, which describes...
You don't need to explain.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You
It says it's federally
yeah.
sourced. That's why we use that. We're following
that
that law.
clarification. The second question, you just referenced the Oversee Board. Is that what you said?
Oh, I think I said we would have some kind of basically the application would come into the county administrator, and then it would be reviewed by the treasurer, the accountant, myself, and the county administrator, and we would develop a recommendation to this board.
Okay, thank you.
And this board would approve any intergovernmental agreement.
Very good, thanks.
Any other comments? Commissioner
A
Huxley?
question, and I know it's in the memo, but where in the Exhibit A is the limit of 10% of road funds? I know I thought I saw it.
It likely would be at the very end. Let's take a look, because that's where it talks about the taxing district road fund. So on page 13 of the packet on this one, section 701140, the amount of monies in this fund shall determine the amount of assistance available. In no event shall the taxing district assistance fund, including outstanding loans, contain more than 10% of the road funds described herein. So that's...
Oh, yeah, I had it. I just missed it. Okay, it's the last sentence.
It's okay.
Okay.
I mean,
Yep.
that's why we have these presentations and hearings, and we try to, and I have missed plenty of things.
I highlighted it and I
so
missed it.
I'm happy to take any comments from anybody on this thing at all.
Commissioner Huxley?
And I know you talked about monthly, and then in the exhibit.
Oh, thank you. You know what?
Okay.
Let's take a look at that. It's on page 12 and 13
yeah.
of this, and it does say payments commence 1 month after funds are issued. So this is really a question for the board. Does the board, I mentioned in the verbal presentation, so this is obviously a draft, and this is our first reading, so this document will have to come back for the board. I'm looking for input from the board, the public, anyone on helping shape the terms here. So that would be a policy question for the board. Do you want to receive
quarterly, annually, or monthly payments on these loans?
I think monthly. And it sounds to me like you're setting it up like a mortgage. You don't have to pay your first payment until after the first month, so.
Sure,
Correct?
something like that. You get
Commissioner
the-
Hodgson?
I would agree. I think you said monthly when you were doing your memo, you're going through your explanation. I would
Yep.
agree, you know, that would, monthly, I think you can get in too much trouble if it's quarterly or semi-annually, or certainly
Right.
if it's annually.
Okay, well, very good then. So really the questions for the board dealing with the three policies of liquidity, security, and rate. We propose a rate of 4% above the annual interest that the road fund receives from the investment pool. This would cap any interest rate we could give to any potential borrower. So in other words, if someone came in and, you know, again, that's just, we're saying that we can't charge anyone more than that. So regardless of the risk, and then perhaps it would just be the recommendation, since we can't and these people are too risky, we wouldn't loan on those terms. So these are policy questions. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Commissioner Hudson?
Well, you say it's capped, but the floater, it's not capped, because the floater is
At
the
least.
road fund interest the road fund receives from its investment tool, which floats with no limit, up or
No,
down.
I agree with that, but if a I'll call it a risky borrower, for lack of a better term, in other words, this is the set rate, we only have one rate,
True.
4% above that, and so we would not be able to adjust our loan rates depending on sizing up any potential borrowers.
Well, actually, you could say at least 4% above. That would
Okay.
take care of that.
I could do that.
Commissioner
But
Hudson?
I think in some of the other requirements, the liquidity, the equity, you know, things that are in there,
Yeah.
they have to be
Secure.
reasonably
Yeah,
secure and
sure.
qualified, or it wouldn't be considered.
Yep, and the other thing I like about just establishing one rate for everyone is that we don't get into arguments that we're being unfair or treating people differently. So,
That's true, too.
and then is the board comfortable? The last one would be the not to exceed 5 years on the duration. The statute allows up to 20. The typical investment pool is 18 months with up to more. So we're going on a more conservative side on these loans. So just and these are really, again, policy questions for the
Well,
board.
I'm telling you why I would agree to that is because interest rates could vary greatly. And the reason I say that is because interest rates right now are on the rise. And we could get ourselves in a pickle if we have a term of 20 years and we end up with like what happened in the late 1980s. So,
Okay, thank you. Good,
Any other
then that
comments?
helps me. I will bring back at the second reading, it will solidify that it's a monthly payment idea.
okay. So I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. Any of the public out there want to address this issue? Hearing none, let's bring this up for a vote. Do we have a motion to approve the amendment to Ordinance Article 7 Division, adding road funds?
I'll motion to approve, and then it comes back to also bring it
Well,
back
this
for a
is just the
second
first
reading.
reading.
Correct, to bring it back for a second reading at a date, whatever, you know, meets the minimum requirement wait time
Sure.
before we bring it back.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Call for the question.
Aye?
Aye.
I believe November 7th will meet those dates.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
really in the legislative mode here, aren't we?
Well, we're trying to get stuff done. Okay, now we're going to go back to the agenda where we left off. We left off at the amendment. This is F11, Amendment 2, IGA Intergovernmental Agreement, Interoperational Radio System.
Okay, so this is a second amendment to an IGA with 7 counties establishing an interoperational radio system.
Is that
The
word
agreement-
misspelled?
I don't know. I do
I'm
it in
looking
wo-
at it.
I do it in Word, and it should highlight it in red if it was.
I
Since
said the word, but it's not.
Since the agreement and First Amendment were approved by the county board, staff is seeking board approval for this amendment. So in your packet, you'll see basically Amendment 1 to this agreement, which basically made Lynn County the acting agent for that. Amendment 2 basically, from a fiscal standpoint, Amendment 2, and that was signed in April 10th of 2017. Amendment 2 is in your packet, and the bold and underlined are on there. It looks like they're changing some of the terminology from executive authority to fiscal agent, and that the fiscal agent will administer the contracts when you're doing joint contracts and equipment and grants that basically benefit all 7 counties. You have to have a fiscal agent that will be the manager of that. This is granting authority to them to be able to do that and basically deal with budgetary issues on that. So with that, basically you can see in the back of your packet, it'll be signed by, you know, Benton, Coos, Curry, Douglas, Josephine, Lane, and Lynn. So we're looking just to approve this second amendment to the IGA contract for the radio systems.
Okay, so could I get a motion to approve the second amendment?
I'll motion, Chair, to approve the Second Amendment as recommended.
A second?
Second, Commissioner Gold.
Do we have any further discussion? Commissioner
Just a
Hartzler?
question. So the basic reason for this, again, just summarize, what's the reason for changing?
It looks like they're basically changing some of the terminology to be fiscal agents from a legal standpoint for grant administration and grant acceptance for equipment, which is jointly utilized for this service.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, a second. Call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay, Shelley here is from the Recorder's Office to talk about the clear ballot tabulation software loan order.
Shelley Denny, Chief Deputy County Clerk. I wasn't listening, so I'm not sure what your questions were.
The big question, maybe you could...
You haven't been busy, have you?
I'll explain
Not
it
at
in real short terms. We wanted to know what was the interest, what was the principal on the loan. It was not clear in the documentation.
I think the total interest over the life of the loan, if you do the calculations, I think about $3,000 per payment, but I'm not sure. I didn't calculate that. I think Renee was working with the state treasurer, treasury to get an email stating that. I think Clark was emailing back and forth with
Yeah,
her.
she just sent me an email saying any minute now she's going to receive a total interest charge from the state treasurer's office, but they don't have that in front of them yet.
Okay, so why don't we hold off on this and go back to the regular agenda unless there's...
Well, the other
Council
question,
Huddle?
Shelley, was we're borrowing money like $82,000 or something like that.
82,178, I
But
believe.
part of it is for services.
I think that was all outlined in the original agreement that was signed with Clear Ballot back a couple of months ago. So I think the first payment was 100% hardware, 50% software. Second payment's 20% software, 50% service fee to install the equipment. Third payment's 20% software, 50% services, and the final payment is 10% for it to be complete.
Okay, it just seemed odd to borrow money to pay for services, but I guess if we don't have the money, we need to get it from somewhere, huh? Okay.
Madam,
Yes.
I think we need to get this done for them.
Yeah, the longer we wait, the more the interest rate's going to go up. So right now we're locked in 4.035%.
I got you. We'll get this done before lunch.
Okay.
Otherwise, nobody's going.
All right.
I'm just telling you.
So you're just wanting how much the total interest?
Yeah.
Right. Interest,
Principal.
principal.
Okay.
Two things.
Okay.
And
we're waiting
I'll
on that.
watch the email, and when it comes in, I'll notify.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to item 12.
Thank you for coming over.
Curry County Public Transit Service District, STIF funds. We need a plan approval on this. Let me just kind of give you some information since I went to all those meetings. There were like 3 or 4 meetings where the committee met to come up with a plan, a very detailed plan, plus a meeting where the public was invited to give input into this plan. And so I would recommend that we approve this plan. So do we have a motion to approve the plan?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Okay, moving on. A discussion about the travel.
Yeah, so if you could take one of these and pass it along. I think Mr. Huxley already have a copy of that. I gave you one earlier today. You kept one. And then one of these packets. Okay, so in short, Commissioner Boyce basically gave me some information this morning. He basically summarized in the packet that I handed out to you, which we will put online for people to review, the different meetings Commissioner Boyce has gone to in September. So we basically got this came to our attention. We turned in the mileage for September to the road department. The cars that the commissioners utilize and most other cars that the county uses, it's similar to a rental car. The departments are charged by the mile for every mile that's driven on these vehicles, and the road department takes care of the gas and the maintenance and the tires and the brakes and everything else on it. So the vehicle that Commissioner Boyce has been driving is a Taurus. It charges out at 43 cents a mile. And I don't, we'd have to talk to Diane Carpenter at the road department. My understanding is that's a group of cars. It's not an individual car that they say this car is 43, the other car is 41. I think they throw a bunch of sedans into the same category, and this is a collective rate of all the different sedans that the county owns comes out at this rate. So Commissioner Boyce, when we looked at the beginning and ending mileage for September, we ended up with 2,601 miles at 43 cents a mile. That ends up being $1,118.43. That'll be charged to the commissioner's travel budget. Going to the memo, I wrote briefly just updated a memo from that I had previously brought to you on October 3rd. We were contemplating registering a commissioner-elect for the AOC meeting conference in November after the election, so they could get acclimated and oriented towards county services and government in general. So this is basically a continuation of that memo. When I look at that, there's and again, these are all very possibilities. None of these future costs are actual costs, so things are going to change. But when we looked at it in October 3rd, we had a possible cost of around $910 for a commissioner-elect. Going to the summary, we basically have commissioner travel budget for 18-19 of $4,500. As of August 31st, which is the last time, which is the most updated revenue and expense reports we had $1,549 charged to the commissioner travel budget for travel expenses. I added in the Commissioner Boyce travel to the AOC conference in November, which would be $475 for the conference, $300 for hotel, travel would be $160, and we add the Commissioner-elect's $910. That leaves a balance, as of the writing that I did that report on October 3rd, of $1,106. We now have this new bill for travel in September of $1,118.43. That leaves a balance of negative $12 until June 30th. In addition, there has been some travel since October 3rd, or since September, obviously, till today, there's probably another few $100s in there, so the travel budget has already been depleted if we account for future spending, future travel, future AOC budgets, and commissioner-elect. So technically, we're not over budget yet because we have not expended these future money, even though we have obligated ourselves to go. We haven't expended the money yet, if that makes a difference. I'm bringing this to the attention of the board because the next board meeting is not till November 7th. I felt we could not wait till November 7th, accumulate more costs when we have exceeded the budget already. This is what got us into trouble in the 2017-18 fiscal year, where we ended up with $5,500 of overspending, and the board has directed the county as a whole to basically seek claimant from Commissioner Boyce of $5,513 for exceeding the travel budget in that previous fiscal year. I'm bringing this to the board's attention to try to limit the fact that either we need to adjust the budget to accommodate more travel going till June 30th, or we need to figure something out. I think it's unrealistic to think that we're not going to have any more travel till June 30th. My recommendation to the board would that you direct staff to come back with a budget amendment to a future meeting. With that, I'll take questions.
Okay, Commissioner Huxley, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you gave me this just this morning when I came in, and of course when I first looked, because I'd also seen that we had additional mileage through a document, I think, on October 15th from Administrator Assistant Jesuit. That's where you came up with your comment about a few $100 more.
Yes.
I made a comment too that you don't have credit card receipts in, you know, to be recognized, or gas receipts to be recognized, because there's a time of several weeks before that type of document or documentation flows through the system. At best, there's a period of several weeks. My suggestion, well, there's no question at this time, is that the entire budget has been exceeded as of today, for sure. There's no question about that. Rather than come back, you know, at the next meeting with a basically authorization to spend more, I think it's prudent to discuss this subject. We'll have better revenue. We'll have the revenue and expense reports through the month of September that we were expecting to have about a week before the October 31st meeting. I think this needs to be, because the county's already over. They were over last year. They were over the year before, and the year before, and the year before. That doesn't make it right, okay? But because we're already over, and we do have this meeting scheduled for just things like this budget committee review of specifically the revenue and expense report review, that we wait. It's not going to change anything here, that we wait until the meeting October 31st and have that as a topic to review. Again, we'll have the updated revenue and expense reports for the month of September at that point in time. I'm not prepared to start signing anything or start saying, you know, after the fact it's done, okay, or to get into any supplemental budgets as a quick reaction to overspending. So that's my position.
Well, and I'm kind of looking at the mileage, the total mileage, but we've got like 4 meetings, one to Salem, Lincoln City, Grants Pass, North Bend. Those were the meetings that were out of county, and I'm questioning whether 2,601 miles that looks a little high to me. In fact, it looks a lot high. So that's my question. So I think I'm going to agree with Commissioner Huxley. We need to kind of put this off till the next meeting till we can analyze it more carefully. Commissioner Boyce?
So I have I might want to put it in the past tense, had a meeting Thursday, the AOC Board of Directors in Salem. Now I'm also on the Budget Committee, and so I'm committing some very important time on that. As you may recall, we had $1 million extra in $1 million extra that come through the PILT system, and that's a very, very important board. So my choices are basically pay my own way or disregard important county business. I've asked for your trust. I think I've demonstrated trust, and not forgetting that the budget for the 2017-18 year was slashed from $14,000 to $4,700. I've never understood why that could have been justified. So it's a heck of a decision for me to make, and I don't think I'm going to pay any more out of my pocket. By the end of this year, I will have paid $37,000 out of my own pocket through receipts paid, through voluntary salary cuts, through meals that I've refused to turn in to save the county money. And so the bottom line is county business, with the exception of those that I can possibly do by phone, and that's a limited basis and certainly a limit in effectiveness, then that's going to be sidelined. It looks like, including the AOC convention, it looks like it's going to be sidelined indefinitely. So I think that's a huge mistake, and I want the people to know. And I'm going to say again, and I know you're tired of hearing it, but apparently I haven't impacted you to any level that would suggest it's legitimate and wise, that the amount of travel I do is precise and very, very important, and I'm doing it for all three of us, because you two don't travel outside the county, or at least very, very seldom. And so that's with the problems we have in this county, that's a heck of a position to be in, and it's another sad day. So.
I think you missed my point. My point was the stuff you turned in on these meetings came to 2,601 miles when there was travel only to Salem once, Lincoln City, Grants Pass, and North Bend. That's what I was referring to, and that seemed high to me.
Okay, what about everything else I just referenced, ma'am? Everything else I just referenced about I've asked you in the past.
Nothing else was here, is my point.
Okay, you're talking about 1 month. I'm talking about 21 months. What would you like me to not you made this statement. You would prefer me to prioritize my travel. As if I am at random.
Okay, the documentation we received was only for 1 month. So that's all I can analyze is what the documentation I've received. I haven't received any other documentation, and I'd be happy to analyze that, but at this point, I don't have it. So I think if we...
So what would you like me to do regarding the Friday meeting in Salem for the Association of ONC Counties, the BLM counties, where it is...
I would say turn in a slip just like this, so we know what's going on.
So would you suggest that that is priority travel?
I'm not suggesting that it's not. I'm not saying...
We don't have the money, and we're not going to offer additional money.
I never said that. I was just looking at what was turned in.
Okay, but if I use my own funds, my own personal funds, I don't know that I'm going to be reimbursed, which I've only one time in 23 months asked to be reimbursed, and those records are clear, and the rest I've paid on my own. And that doesn't seem to have any influence on this board, I'm sorry to say, and if I understand correctly.
Part of the problem was we didn't ever get any documentation. This is the first documentation
I bring you stuff back almost all the time.
No, with the forms and mileage and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to approve something when you don't have the documentation. So that's where I'm at. I prefer to put this into October so we can look at it.
So Madam Chair,
yes.
There's no real consensus from the county board besides the fact that you want to basically have updated budget information brought to the budget committee on October 31st.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will help guide the county board to make a decision. And the November 7th meeting, which would be will we address the expected budget shortfall. We haven't expended the money yet. We have obligated ourselves to the AOC conferences, but we haven't really spent the money yet.
Well, and
So-
I am more than happy to, do increases as long as they can be documented and taken care of in that way, justified.
Thanks for that clarification, Madam Chair, but you would acknowledge that I have been fairly consistent bringing you back information for your review.
I've never disputed that. We just
Okay, well,
haven't received.
You just clarified something else for me and the
wait
public.
just a minute. I've never received sales receipts or any of that, so.
Well, all I charge is a Motel 6 and fuel on a
Well-
14-year-old car.
Great, turn in the sales receipts.
So,
Documentate, not to me, I haven't seen it,
so Madam Chair, we're having a lunch break shortly. And Commissioner Boyce, you're requesting to go up to a meeting on Thursday, Friday?
I'm contemplating not going. I think I'm forced into a tough decision there. I'm not paying any more out of my pocket. I've made that clear. Thank you.
But you come back to the board after lunch with a request to say approve this travel for.
That's already been approved by the board.
well, if it's been approved, then that's it.
But we don't have the money. You approved on the October 3rd meeting, or maybe it was, maybe it was the third week in September.
Oh, you're right.
Two Salem meetings
the ONC
that are
one.
coincidentally-
You're right. The ONC one was approved on the October 3rd meeting. I stand corrected.
I don't know if I even want to get in one of the county cars. I almost feel like I'm violating, it's a crazy situation.
So is there any other suggestions that staff can do before the October 31st meeting except for just a tabulation of current expenses?
Well, if you want to bring back requests for travel, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Just like you did at the last meeting.
It's not the budget committee's
no, that's
issue
the
to
budget.
approve travel. I'm talking about the budget. The next meeting will be the budget committee. We'll just come up with updated expenses, and they can help determine if we're going to increase and do a supplemental budget for the travel.
Yeah,
Till
that's
June
fine.
30th. Okay.
Okay, that pretty well covers everything until 1 p.m., so we're going to meet back here at 1 p.m. This meeting's adjourned until
Adjourned,
it's
recessed.
recessed till then. Thank you. Okay, we'll meet back at 1 o'clock.
Con, what about the entire budget
6?
committee here? That wasn't-
Okay, got it.
I'm just poking at you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll think about it.
Yeah, you get that a lot of consideration there.
I will.
Is it going to be a real problem if I do the ballot, clear ballot tabulation software first before the public hearing? We're going to be off by a couple of minutes.
Is there anybody here?
So in my experience doing this, you can basically have a public hearing anytime after you post.
Oh, okay.
You just can't do it before. You can have it at 2 o'clock. It doesn't matter.
Well, that ain't going to happen, but
It's a common courtesy.
to do it at the right time.
It's common courtesy on the public to do. Legally, though, you can have it after 1.
Okay, we're going to resume this meeting now. We're going to veer off just a little bit and go back to the clear ballot tabulation software loan order. And then we'll do the public hearing. This shouldn't take long at all. We got the information about the interest and so forth on the loan. And that was, total interest was $7,122.33. And the principal was $82,100. No, that was the total of everything. The total principal, I guess I'm going to have to figure it, was whatever. But the interest is $7,122.33. And if we subtracted that from $82,178, we would have the principal.
I'm still confused. I don't think that's right. I think,
This came right from the treasurer's office.
yeah, but 5 times 16,
No, when I did this, it came up to the 82,178.
Are we mic'd?
Yeah,
Can we just do some quick math here? So,
Here, I've got it. if I took $16,435.60 times 5, it ends up $82,178.
Right, so we're adding 82 plus 7,000 would be, it's going to be 89,000 the total loan.
That's what's been confused in this whole thing. The
Okay.
interest was included in
The
that
interest was
principal amount.
included in here.
No, it's not.
Well, that's what they said. So how,
Okay,
what does
I'm
that
going by this
actually?
heading right here, it says principal payment.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So maybe that's the only mistake right there. Maybe that's the total loan.
Yeah, that's what was so confusing from the
Okay.
start. Because they referred to interest, they referred to a principal, a specific amount, but the total includes the interest, and they may still have the terminology wrong, but that includes principal and interest. is
Okay, so if we wanted to
82,000.
find out exactly what the principal is, we would subtract the $7,122.33
And then divide by
from
5.
here.
They show you the principal right there. But again, that includes interest, so it's still confusing.
No,
Okay.
you had it correct there a second ago.
Okay, so if we were to 178
Minus 7,100.
minus $7,122.33.
Divide by 5.
Well, forget the 5, because all we want is the total interest, total principal.
Divide by 5, that's going to tell you how much each payment would be.
Well, but each payment's $16,435.60.
The principal of the 16,000 portion.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like your mortgage payment. Every payment has a different principal and interest.
Okay, do we need that
Pretty
for
good.
the record? Because my stupid calculator didn't do it
No,
correctly.
I think we can approve this the way it
Okay,
is.
so let's just have a
It's
motion to
misleading. It
approve
never
it.
should have been
I would just say
referenced that way.
it could have been delineated clearer,
Much clearer.
but I say we just go for
Okay,
it.
I'm for it. Do I have a motion to approve this?
Chair, I would motion to approve the agenda item
11 times 5. So you're on the right track.
under the consent calendar, which was the clear ballot tabulation software loan order, which for a total sum, including interest, of $82,178.
Second, Commissioner Gold.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think we've discussed it ad nauseum. Okay, we're moving on to the public hearing. This is the flood damage prevention ordinance. And we've got John Bischoff, who's kind of sitting in for Carolyn, as well as Administrator Schroeder. So whoever wants to go first, do your thing.
I'll just say the reason this is in front of the board, as we reiterated from the October 3rd meeting, was we had noticed a public hearing for this particular ordinance to be on October 3rd. One of the two papers, which the county notices, public notices in, failed to do the publication. They did put the notice in a timely and legal fashion, and henceforth we had to continue the public hearing to this date in order to allow the publication to be noticed properly. So with that, it's no different than we had last time.
So we're ready to vote on it, it sounds like, except we
Exception
need
of
to
public
allow
hearing.
the public to speak.
Yes.
So does anybody of the public out there have any comments regarding this issue? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed.
John, do you have anything?
Well, I just wanted to reiterate that our original ordinance was made in 2009, and that FEMA has changed some of their regulations. They haven't changed what you can put in the flood zones, but they have changed how you may put them in, and the size of some of the flood zones may have changed due to their new calculations. And also, I want to point out that the FEMA has said that if we don't get an ordinance adopted by November 16th, nobody in the Curry County would be able to buy flood insurance. So we need to move on this. And I want to point out that the ordinance says that we are adopting the ordinance in the packet, and I want to make sure that that means the clean ordinance, not the one that I've written up with all the amendments and the, showing all the changes in it. I hope we got a clean ordinance, and I'm putting one together now if we don't.
So when we make the motion, do you want us to motion that we approve the clean ordinance?
Yes,
Okay.
if you know what I mean.
The updated.
Upgraded without the corrections in it that I have in
Right.
the original.
Okay, I think that's kind of
strikeouts and the, we don't want to adopt that one.
Right, right.
It is understood, except for we did at one time adopt an ordinance with a bunch of strikeouts in it, but.
Yeah.
All right, we have clear intention here.
Okay, Administrator Schroeder.
And this is also for the general public. We have, we're in communications with Lane County, which does our contracted GIS services that you'll see on the county, where you want to look at the property viewer. Under there, there's a one on the table of contents. When you look at the GIS system, there's one of the categories you can click on is hazards. Underneath hazards, you can see FEMA flood maps, coastal erosions, fire threat index, moving slides, all these different things in there. So you basically would click on the FEMA flood maps, and so what we'll be doing going forward after we adopt this, I will be directing them to basically update the map with the FEMA information. They've been in contact with the FEMA and have downloaded that data, and they will integrate it into our system. That'll take a while, but eventually you'll be able to look on your property and figure it out.
Okay. Commissioner
A
Hussler?
comment on the John Bischoff's comments as far as making sure it's the right document. I mean, this document in here on, let's say, section 1 of the prevention ordinance even has a legend on the top. Yellow is strikeout and correction, blue are changes, and green is reformatted only. So none of that's going to be in the
That's
the
correct.
final, and yet that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, we don't want to adopt that one. We want to adopt a clean copy of
We don't,
it.
that we don't have here.
Yeah.
Is that, County Council, is that okay?
Sure. So essentially,
How do we
what
word
you have is a legislative protocol, and by moving to adopt it, it will basically include the instruction to eliminate what you would call editing marks, including the highlights and the legend and any strikeouts.
Okay.
So by approving it, you're approving the final version, and so that would be it. And then I'm wondering, I'm trying to think, this might need to come back for a second reading because it's a non-emergency ordinance. Well, this is the second reading, I
This is
suppose.
It is the second reading.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what'll happen. And then, by the way, if you recall a bit ago, you adopted an ordinance authorizing county council to correct typos or scrivener's errors, excuse me, and that would be the category. If any of the edit marks survived the final adoption and wound up in our code somehow, county council could correct that through scrivener's error powers. So
Okay.
I think, unfortunately, because we did have a edited version end up on the books at one time, get recorded with the county clerk, it's a great observation by John Bischoff to make, and that we're all clear, including staff, before it gets filed with the clerk, that it be cleaned up.
Okay.
We did have someone arrive after we started. Are you here for the flood ordinance or for the vacation? Thank you. Okay.
I actually
It's not her vacation, though.
No.
Actually, John, just to clarify this, if you were to go to the online packet and go to page 60, I believe that is the clean version of this ordinance.
Okay.
I think there's two versions in here. One which shows you the edited changes to this particular ordinance, which you're editing. This is not a new ordinance, so we're editing the ordinance. The above pages are the, the edited version, and starting on page 60 on the packet is the clean version, as we call it.
Mr. Schroeder, is that 60 of 234 pages?
260 of 234, yes.
Thank you.
If I could make a comment, when I asked Brenda to copy this for me, I got a copy. She copied both the highlighted one, and there was another ordinance in there, but I looked at it and it had all of the old wording in it.
Okay, so the unedited version I'm looking in this packet is basically an unedited copy.
I think so. I'm putting together a clean copy, which I will get up to
all right.
you.
Okay, so then we would probably direct, we would direct the board to say, have council huddle to clean up this and adopt the ordinance unedited.
Okay, so do we have a motion to do so?
I can do it after the motion, I guess, yeah. So this is an action item today.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
'Cause I wasn't sure of that.
Well, actually, I've received a threatening letter from FEMA that
Oh,
it needs to be in.
is that you the one that got that letter?
I was.
Chair, if you would. Yep.
Yeah.
So I think this is the motion you want, Madam Chair. Forgive me, I'm getting there. What, it just froze. I'll be done. Okay, okay, we're gonna go back.
So you want to approve the flood damage prevention ordinance? Is that what you want to
I
do?
think we're adopting the ordinance, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And it just unfroze here. To replace the Curry County Flood Management Ordinance with a new ordinance to comply with current FEMA standards.
Mm-hmm.
That's my motion, ma'am.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay,
I
discussion.
I just want to check one thing to follow through what John said.
I thought we were on pretty good terms with FEMA.
Well, I think they sent them to everybody.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Let me
I
just-
didn't feel like I was
Singled out.
singled out, not at all.
Let me just, give me a minute here.
Aren't computers wonderful?
Operator here. Madam Chair, this, while he's looking at it, this references Homeland Security Regulations Department.
That, you were correct. Okay. Well, I'm not sure, because the first thing I checked on page 61 is area of special flood hazard. And this is unedited, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, has 7 lines in it. And
And page,
Now, in the new section, the part that says means the land in the floodplain within a community subject to a 1% or greater chance of flooding in any given year designation on maps always includes the letter AV. That
That's
has been struck.
correct, but the remainder has been added,
Yes.
and that language is reflected on page 61, not what has been struck through.
yeah, because I remember dealing with this issue. So
So-
this is when,
This is at least that one page is
so
corrected.
the issue we were having is more of a technical issue. Carolyn had basically put this in, she had edited it, and we were, John was working on it, I was working on it. We were trying to clean this up, and we were having trouble accepting the track changes on here because Carolyn had initiated it and she was unavailable because she had another issue. And what I think I think we ended up just copying it, pasting it, and trying to do that. So we were struggling with trying to get the accept changes done on it.
Okay, so we're not going to have that to sign today, it sounds like. It needs to be all cleaned up?
Well, I think we should just print off both of them and just have one more time through it and just reread it. So we will print off the edited version and we will print off the clean version that we have in the packet.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to have one more review of that from staff.
Okay.
So you don't have to sign it today. We just need to get it done by
Commissioner
November.
Gold, if I'm not mistaken, on your letter, we have until November 16th. Wasn't that the
Yes,
date?
we do.
So
But you need to be right on what's sent.
I agree.
Yeah. So you guys approve it, and then if we'll make sure that what you're approving is correct.
How about we approve it with the appropriate changes, ready to turn it in? How's that?
Yes.
Okay?
What is the chance? Do we need to spend more time on it? Is there a concern that they're going to reject it? I mean, staff time is so valuable and expensive.
Well, if it's an ordinance, it's got to be right in the
Well,
book.
Commissioner, the concern
If I
is
could
that
comment.
we have a mix mash of different versions here, and you want to be sure that you send the proper one, or it would be a disaster.
And if I can comment, FEMA has approved the ordinance, the clean ordinance, as written with the strikeouts and everything. I mean, once you get the clean ordinance, that's the ordinance that FEMA has approved.
Commissioner Boyd?
So, Mr. Bischoff, do you think we need to spend the time? I'll defer to your recommendation here.
Well, I think you could approve it knowing that the one that you adopt will be the clean copy.
I think we're there, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, just a clean copy.
Just be done with it.
What I'm just saying, instead of just printing it off and having you sign right after the meeting, I'd like to have you sign it just another day, so we have time just to give it one more, just check off to make sure I'm comfortable with it, okay?
Make sure you're signing the right thing.
So we'll just make sure that staff is on it, and we'll get it in there in time, instead of signing it this afternoon.
Okay, I'm not even going to ask you for an estimate on that additional time. So we have a motion, Madam Chair?
Yes, we do. We have a motion on the floor. We've just, and a second, so we're ready to call for the question.
Aye?
Aye.
What that entails is basically a 20-page review. So I don't think that's a lot of time at all.
Thank you very much.
Probably less than 20 minutes.
Well, and it could
nerves
come
are
back to
settled.
bite us if it's not done properly, so let's do it the right way. Thank you, John. We'll see you tonight. Okay, next is our road vacation Pacific City Alley. And that's the next hearing. So, who's going to speak to that?
John will.
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So we received more like an inquiry saying what happened to my petition to vacate a portion of an alley up in Pacific City. And if the board recalls, Pacific City is up in the Flores Lake area, and this was property that, was platted and then didn't pay their taxes and the county owned, but there's still some private ownership there. One of the things the county owns is essentially a grid network of platted out streets, meaning, these are streets on paper, but they've never been built, and some of them are alleys. And so this is a piece of an alley at the northern part of that large Pacific City development, and it says that it's block number 3 of Pacific City, Plat 1, map and tax lot 311508DB, roads, and roads designates our ownership, and then map number 31 South, 15 West, 08DB. And then the petition came from Ms. Spanier, and she represents the owner of the property. She has 3 or 4 lots that border this, and there's one other owner who's received notice of this, who has a very sliver of a lot abutting this. And really, this hearing is for anyone to come and say why this shouldn't be vacated. But really, and we've got the map for you to review is on page 7 of the materials on this item. And again, that's really all I have. Unless the board had questions, you can open up the public hearing.
Any questions of the board? Okay, so this public hearing is open. Does any of the public want to speak to this issue? My guess is Trudy's here for that, right? Come on. You might want to say your whole name. I remembered your first name. I thought that was pretty good.
Yes, it is. My name is Trudy Spanier, and I own the property on both sides of the alleyway, all except for a 25-foot wide piece that fronts Boyce Cope Road the entire way. And so I don't see any downside for that person who owns that 25-foot wide by 100-foot section of gaining another 15 feet onto their property if it is vacated. And there's no limited access because it's all on Boyce Cope.
For them,
For
yes.
them,
For
yes.
the neighbor, right.
And it's been gated for many years for my driveway because I have a house on one side and then the driveway up to another house on another lot. And so no one has needed to access it at all for any reason whatsoever. And I carport from my renters because they're from Denver and they were not used to the rain last winter. I would like to keep these renters.
The board here can't approve that. I mean, that's kind of extraneous information.
But now I'm really pulling for you.
But the alleyway comes within about 12 inches of the front porch on the existing house.
So were you saying the alleyway's worth $1 million? Is that what I heard?
I wish.
I'm kidding.
Yes. But I wanted to apologize for being late to a meeting. I had no idea there was that much construction going on between here and Port Orford. I'm amazed. But
they're getting ready for winter, I think.
yes, but I'm
Road
sorry to
improvement,
make you wait.
Highway 101.
So,
Didn't you say that was done?
but unless you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions of Trudy?
And if the board, I don't know, is that mouse here I could even show for the members of the public?
Is there a black and turquoise mouse there?
No.
Do you have it?
Let me just see if I can.
Pretty good with that mouse.
616.
And what it would do is also reserve existing easements for utilities. That's a standard of the vacation. And then the usual rule on when you do vacate, that the properties go, the vacated right of way. Sorry, I put the microphone off to talk. Thank you, Charles. So the properties go to the ownership on either side, and I think Ms. Spanier owns the properties on both sides of this. So here's a map of it. It's a hashed area there. The aerial, I think, does a better job, which is here. And so if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Spanier, you own 800, and do you also own the 1001 and these ones? Sure. So in the rule on a vacation, when you vacate an alley, from the center line, it goes one half to one side and one half to the other. And this is the only property that hasn't consented to the vacation, but they're not here to oppose it either. But if the whole alley gets vacated, basically this little portion will go to 700. And what Ms. Spanier was saying is there's no harm to them because they won't be deprived of any access because of the alley vacation, because number one, they'll have this section here. Number two, they front Boyce Cope Road right there. So that's really the long and the short of the vacation, and the staff recommends approval. There should be a report in here from the...
there.
Sure.
Come back when it's convenient.
So is that alley even used by people?
No, all of Pacific City, except for what you see as in white here, But so much of Pacific City, it was platted with all of these were going to be streets, these lots were going to be sold, etc. This was going to be a giant subdivision and a community, a whole city.
Was that the Music Man that put that together, or?
No, but I think it was someone probably before the 20s, before, the big crash.
Yep.
And there was also, just sorry about historically, my understanding is they were going to use Flores Lake and they were going to dredge a channel from Flores Lake out to the ocean, and and Flores Lake is 35 feet deep, so they're going to have a deep water port. But what happened was Flores Lake is 10 or 20 feet above sea level, and if they would have dredged a canal, it would have drained Flores Lake. I mean, Trudy, am I getting close here? Anyway, so...
You're not really serious, right?
I am serious. You can read the history. Some
carpetbaggers.
I don't know if they were carpetbaggers.
That's why I said the Music Man.
But regardless, and so what happened was, as a result of some problems, they couldn't pay their taxes, so the county obtained this property, and that's this is the very northern reaches of some of the things we've talked about, transferring property to the state. We've talked about what are we going to do with the Flores Lake properties. That's what some of these are. But again, we're dealing with a very small segment of that property. It's this alley right here, and it only exists on paper, which is why our roadmaster has written a report saying there's no public interest or plan for the county to develop this in the future, and the county doesn't have any need for this to be used. So.
Mr. Schroeder?
I think this is just a good educational opportunity for the county board. As John says, this piece of property up here is just part of a bigger plat that has hundreds and hundreds of lots. You know, a lot of these lots, if you look back in the map, John, that lot number 700, that's not buildable.
Yeah. How big is that?
You know, so...
25 feet
25 by
50 or 100
So the issue, when you think about, and this is for the general public, when you think about the big Flores Lake Park, where we have this 500 acres, we're dealing with a 170-acre parcel, but that other area, you have hundreds and hundreds of lots. Sprinkled throughout there are these little 25-acre lot, 25-foot wide pieces that are owned by somebody that the county's going to have to eventually clean up and figure out who owns them, and are they still paying taxes, and are they still alive, and if we ever do something with that property, such as parks or trails or development or something, all these little pieces like lot number 700 have to be cleaned up. So I just wanted to highlight that this is endemic in that property south
planning, isn't it?
However, the person that had the objection, he is the attorney for the estate that owns some of this in here.
Mm-hmm.
And that also is not open. And they were trying to give it to the Boy Scouts, and Boy Scouts didn't want it because there's too much lot. Everything, I have the high portion of the land on that side of the road, and then everything on the other side of my house, this drops off about 35 feet, and this is all creeks and water all the way along.
Mm-hmm.
It's all...
Just unbuildable, sounds like.
Yeah, couldn't get something to do it.
Commissioner Huxley?
Just for clarification, when Administrator Schroeder mentioned that they're not buildable, that is not applied to all of the lots. There are many that are,
On the other
and
side of the
there are
road, there is some high ground.
communities, you look at something 25 feet wide. I was at one point in a little town called Los Osos, and it was built originally on the same concept of 25-foot wide lots, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And you had some pretty spectacular, believe it or not, some amazing houses on 25-foot wide, and they were 125 long, but you can build something on a 25-foot wide. Yeah, it's amazing.
Commissioner Boyce?
Just that road, I didn't get the name of the road that was on the top
Boyce Cope Road?
I'm sorry. It
No,
wasn't marked, but that is their access, your neighbors, right?
Yes.
They have good access, so I mean, there's just really no
The
issue
whole
here.
front of their 25 feet.
It's the road that goes right to the boat launch.
Yeah.
Well, I should know that.
At Boyce Cove Park.
Boat launch. Thank you, Council.
Okay, any other comments? Do we have a
Who's that
motion?
named after, Commissioner Boyce? Which one of your relatives?
Yeah, I know.
Which one, though? You have a handful, but which is it?
I think it was my great-grandfather.
Okay.
So was he the one that did this planning?
Nope.
Oh,
don't
okay,
think so.
just
The
checking.
Boyce and Cope family.
Well, just 'cause they failed
property
didn't
that
mean-
the park is on. They donated the property.
Can you stand by the microphone if you're going to speak, please? Thank you.
The Boyce and Cope families wanted the park to be there, so they donated the land that the actual Curry County Park is on, and so that's why that.
Actually, the
Name
Cope
that.
family's in favor of it. The Boyce family was, no, I'm kidding.
So moving on, we had a second? Did we have a second?
I guess we did.
Did you say we had a motion and a
Thanks for
second?
traveling
or-
up here today.
Thank you.
Motion by Commissioner
Okay, so we
Okay,
did.
good. I think we've
Okay.
discussed enough.
Okay.
Let's vote on it. So, all in favor, or are we in
Aye.
favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we got it.
Very good.
You get your alley.
Yeah, here's all these hundreds of lots and streets and alleyways
And Miss Spanier's up here. Miss Spanier's up here, and here's the park, Boyce Cope Park and the Boyce Cope Road, and then this is the part, and we're talking about, this is the part that's
500
under,
acres.
this, yeah, and this little peninsula here is being discussed in a land swap. This part here is just hanging out, and the access to it would technically be from here. So all these roads
Does the
are.
county own most of those little lots?
Yep, we own, I would say 90+% of it.
99% probably are owned by the county.
90
But
plus for sure.
I
Yeah.
happen to, you can spend 5 minutes, you can find one, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Because each one of those.
Well, there's actually a process where we can vacate a lot of this, and then if someone's landlocked, they would be able to say they need some kind of an access, and then the other thing we can do is just purchase their lot from them. If
So are there any homes in that
I don't
dense
believe there's any homes at all in
One.
here.
area?
It's just a
There's
big
no
wo-
improvements.
Just a big wooded area.
Yes,
Yep.
big, beautiful wooded area.
And it's full bear and
There's no bear.
there are bears. There are. They come when the bees get rented for the bogs. Then they come
So
back.
actually, John, if you can just leave that up for a second.
All right.
Give me the mouse.
We're going to go to a different subject, aren't we?
Well, part of
Are we?
the-
Yeah, we are on we are done. Ms. Spanier, you are welcome to stay, but your item has been approved, and we'll
She's
get that
probably
recorded.
interested in
Yeah.
what he's going to
I
talk
was going
about.
to, in my administrator reports, I was going to give an update anyway on this one.
Oh,
subject,
okay.
so-
If I could, before we, Ms. Spanier, there's some question as to what, you mentioned you had some plans. I believe, even though by law we've said it'll go back, you may need to do an independent action of some kind of a lot line adjustment or something to consolidate your lots or do something like that for tax purposes and maybe recording purposes and things like that. That's some discussion we've been having between the legal department and the clerk's office as far as, where do they put this in the land record. So I just want to let you know, you may need to do a step or two to kind of clean up the legal descriptions of your lands for your deeds and all that stuff. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that.
So I'm just going to add one positive. If she's adding land to her lot, then she's going to be paying more tax, right?
Yep, yep.
So it'll be a benefit to the county, 59 cents for whatever the
Just a
assessment
drop in the bucket or the alley.
valuation is.
Fees if I apply for the building permit to get carport.
Correct.
There
And
you
the
go.
and the
Okay.
recording fees for your
I'm just
deed
trying to look
adjustment
at the pluses
and
for the
lot line
county.
adjustment. Yeah.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Well,
Administrator
actually,
Schroeder.
I can wait till I give my update. I just didn't want
Oh,
that
just
to
leave
go-
it there?
I just
Okay.
didn't want that to go away.
Okay, so we're moving on to announcements. The Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee, Law Enforcement, there's a position open there. Parks Advisory Committee is still taking applications. Planning Commission, one from South County, one from North County, is still needed. October 23rd is the Citizens Revenue Task Force meeting at 2 p.m. in the Blue Room. October 31st, Budget Committee meeting, 9 a.m. in the hearing room. November 7th is a general meeting, 10 a.m. in the hearing room. November 12th, the county offices will be closed for Veterans Day. November 22nd, the county offices will be closed, Thanksgiving Day holiday. So, administrator updates. You're on.
Okay. Got a number of things today. The sheriff is having a Taking Back Unwanted Prescription Drugs on October 27th across the street at the Curry County Sheriff's Office and at the substation at 16350 Lower Harbor Road, Suite 203 in Brookings, and at the Curry County Sheriff's Office at 29808 Colvin Street, Gold Beach. So this will be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The Sheriff's Office will be accepting, in order to prevent drug abuse and pill abuse and theft, where you can bring in items. You can't bring in, I believe, liquid. Let's see what else they have to say about that. Yeah, so basically, it's just he's just bringing your, the National Drug Prevention Take Back Day on October 27th from 8 to 5.
Okay.
So people can come to that. I have a letter here that we wrote to the SEI union. And basically, as we settled the union contract, there was some disagreement and consternation between the union and the county concerning what was said, what was done. There were threats of unfair labor practice.
Well, it was more than a threat. They actually filed with the Employment Relations Board a claim of unfair labor practice against us. So we were served.
And during that time period or shortly thereafter, in the overlap, we settled the contract. So instead of fighting this out in court and airing all the dirty laundry, we decided, I credit John with working with the union to settle this issue. And basically what we did was we basically just wrote a letter. It's on the website. We've sent it out. I basically am saying, that we appreciate the union. We're thankful that the union for taking the higher road in what was unfortunately contentious and drawn out negotiations. In that regard, we fully understand that employees in the union were frustrated, unsatisfied with the positions that the county took in the bargaining process, with some of the conduct by county representatives at the bargaining, and with commissioners to employees by county representatives in the communications to the employees by county representatives in the days leading up to a possible work stoppage. None of what the county did was intended to offend you or the union or break the law. To the extent you or the union got a contrary impression, we apologize. In the end, the county is both glad and grateful that you and the union are willing to forego lengthy, costly, and potentially divisive work action and instead work with the county to reach mutually satisfied contract terms. We have every hope and desire to continue to build a strong and mutually respectful relationship with you and the union and help to provide valuable services to the citizens of Curry County. Sincerely, Clerk Schroeder. And there's an introduction there that basically talks about the different departments that we had. So that is on the website for people to view. And I just wanted to say, I appreciate that we didn't have a strike, and I appreciate Mr. Hull's strong efforts and work and solving the unfair labor practice claim.
I'll tell you, that can get really expensive. The
Yep.
school district
Yep.
going through one of those.
Tomorrow, on October 18th, at 10:18 a.m., it's the great shakeout for Oregon. So I would encourage all the citizens and especially county employees at 10:18. Basically, we're advising you to basically shelter for 60 seconds under a desk, under a strong area, something that will support and not fall, and then evacuate your building and go to a place where you can get out of a possible tsunami. So that's happening tomorrow at 10:18, and as a county, we're all participating in this. We'll be evacuating our buildings and congregating, and if not going there, discussing where we would go to get out of the tsunami. The road department will be doing this as they're out on the roads doing work. They'll figure out where they would go during this type of event. So I'd encourage everybody to contemplate and consider that. There's a neighborhood workshop on Southern Oak Death Recognition prevention and management practices on Tuesday, October 30th, 5:38 p.m. at the Pistol River Friendship Hall on Carpentersville Road, Gold Beach. And you can register for this free workshop by calling the number that's on here. So I will be posting this information on the community information page for the county, and you'll be able to register and call. It's put on by the Forest and Natural Resources OSU Extension Services, Coos and Curry County. October 30th, 5:30 to 8 p.m. We also have on our planning department, we have a flyer that was put up. I just want to reiterate, we have some nice directions on accessory dwelling units in Curry County. So you well know there's a new ordinance and new state law that allows people to build accessory dwelling units on their properties. And we would encourage people to investigate this, to expand the pool of housing that we have in the county, which seems to be in very short supply. So I'll be posting that also on the community information link, and it basically answers question and answers what zones you need to be in and how you go about if you're interested in building an accessory dwelling unit on your property. So that could bring in additional revenue and provide opportunities for people to live in the area. The Parks Committee, we do have 4 applicants, by the way. Chair Gold had talked about that. We're still collecting those applications. The committee, as of yesterday, was eligible to be appointed. I will be bringing this to the board on November 7th for appointment. So if anybody has any interest in applying for this, please get an application in before the 7th so we can get that out to the board. The Flores Lake appraisals, I've had a couple of inquiries concerning that. As you well know, we've been working on with the Parks Department from the state. They're interested in exchanging some land in the Flores Lake area with some 30 acres on 101 right across from the high school by Airport Road. And I just wanted, since we had this map up, I wanted to reiterate that we're basically just talking about this 70 acres right here. And because they're interested in that land, they're interested in attaching it to the state parks lands that they have over here. So they're interested in that, and we have the same appraiser is doing both properties. They're in the process of doing a timber cruise and finishing the timber cruise on both properties. And I would expect within a couple of weeks we'll have a better review of where we're at with that, whose property is worth what. So I'll be bringing that back to the board for action. And if we end up with this additional 30 acres, I think this would be an excellent opportunity for the Parks Committee also to weigh in. If we get the 30 acres by 101, would the Parks people be interested in that? Or the road crew or somebody else? That may just be one option of what we would do with that property if we were to successfully swap this land. Google Drive, as you well know, when people are going and getting information for the county for these board meetings, we have a Google Drive where all the agenda items are listed. JJ will be taking documents which we got today and added to the agenda, and we'll be putting it on that Google Drive also, saying additional documents. Because I'm thinking in the future, if somebody wants to look up, a couple things, we got something for the Oasis. We also got a travel policy document came in, and there might be something else. In the future, 2 years from now, if somebody wants to look at what we were doing, they're probably going to look on that site where all the other information is versus the website. So we'll be adding that information at Google Drive, and we'll also put it on the website too. But I just want to make the board aware we will be adding that type of information and where we'll be adding it. I sent a notice out to the county board. There's a in-service on December 7th up in Portland with opportunity zones. As you well know, the county has 2 areas in the county that have opportunity zones. These zones are designed so that people that invest money within them. There's a tax advantage to them to either shelter money or not pay taxes on capital gains from those investments, or they can basically exchange capital gains from other investments. I think that's a very elementary understanding of it. But this is I think it'd be beneficial for somebody in the county to be a resident expert in it, learn more about it in case we have businesses that are interested in expanding or building in an opportunity zone. And I sent it out to the county board asking if anybody in the county board would be interested in going, and if not, I would go up there myself.
What's the dates again?
It's 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on December 7th, Friday, Pearl Harbor Day, and my mother's birthday.
Do they have a call-in system on that?
I have not registered for it, and I would have to call to ask to see if they do. The flyer does not offer that opportunity here, but I have not registered for it to see if that is an option.
Because we could share office on that day. That would be, I think, worthwhile. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Okay.
Orland's a long ways.
We'll look into that.
Great.
Budget committee hearing, I'm still waiting to schedule additional department heads to come to the budget committee meeting in 10-minute increments on the 31st. So if you're a department head and you're listening, please contact me or JJ to sign up for that. And that is my summary.
Okay, thank you. Next, commissioner updates. Commissioner Huxley, you're first.
Question for Administrator Schroeder on one of your comments on where what I would call supplemental materials will be put from meetings for archival purposes and for anybody who's interested in what just happened in the meeting.
Yep. So traditionally we have put documentation on the website where you see you have the agenda, then you have the packet under Board of Commissioners, agenda minutes, general meetings, and we add a separate link on there saying additional materials. What I'm going to do, the new thing I'm doing is basically I'm going to stick it in with the same information, the same place where all the agendas are sitting, the packet on Google Drive. So I'll be creating a new folder called additional materials, and I'll be dropping information in there because I think in the future that's where people will be going for this information.
Okay, well, where we have gone in the past is you mentioned on the website, and we go to additional materials, and it comes up as more. If you look at the website now, the Google link is under more, as would be any additional supplemental materials for that day. That's just that's the default design on the word that comes up. So you would also...
Yeah, we can't really, it's hard to change that.
Well, no, but we know, or anybody that's used that knows that for supplemental materials, you look under more.
Yep.
For under agenda, you look under agenda. So my question, there have been recent meetings where we've had supplemental materials, but there's nothing that's recently shown up for the most part under more. You have the Google links there, and all those links show up, but there's no supplemental materials that are being put on.
That's what I'm saying. That's going to be a new thing.
Well, but we were putting on supplemental materials previously, then we stopped, or it seems that we stopped. So will today's materials, for example, could easily be put on just as we have in past months and show up under more? Any supplemental materials would show up under something. Once you clicked on more, you would see the Google link, but you could also have a separate link there for any and all supplemental materials. Are we going to...
Yeah, we could certainly do that. I mean, on the website, because right now you click on packet, and we could... we could certainly
just
say
so
additional material.
So they end up somewhere because it's been
spot.
dropped. Basically.
Where are those materials then?
They aren't on the
Oh,
supplemental.
well, they're not on the website, but are they kept anywhere or retained for public records retention purposes anywhere else?
JJ, you keep those?
Some materials are on our hard drive, some materials are in paper folders in my office.
I hope your family's watching
So
right now.
no
Right back to my office in the county.
there's no good tracking to your question, County Council. They may exist, but nobody would know it. That's the reason I think we need to get back, however we do it, so that we get them as supplemental materials and get those materials back on the website.
If I'm not mistaken, JJ, before we were putting them on the website, or even when we were putting them on the website, there was also in the drives a packet that would say items submitted, items removed, items submitted at the meeting. Like under each meeting, it had several categories of folders in the drive. Is that still happening?
Yes, that is.
Okay, thank you. So it does seem there is a central place in the meeting drive where you have the different folders. So the materials that get submitted at the meetings, like this stuff here, would be scanned in and saved in materials submitted at the meeting, even if they're not put on our website drive.
Well, they were 100%, and then in the summertime, where there was a change in policy, more or less,
Practice,
said that
perhaps.
some things should not go on the website.
But then, did they still, regardless of whether they're on the website, do they go into the drive?
No.
I see. Okay.
So it's not good public access. That's my concern. There's not good public access. There used to be. And
Well, it's not just public
additional
access,
work.
it's
no additional work,
Well,
basically.
for me, it's essentially what's our standards, what's our policies, what's the processes, and if we get requests for these documents, where are they going to be? I'm recently processing a public record request for some materials from a meeting, and they're nowhere to be found. So, the person who was here at that time is gone. So, even though it may work for whoever's here right now, what's happened with posterity? So, perhaps the board needs to come up with some direction to administration on how they want this to be handled.
Maybe we should put that on the next meeting, or?
I'd be happy to propose a policy for the board to review. I guess one of my concerns, and I guess maybe we would talk about this at a workshop, because I have some concerns of just basically offering anything that any citizen brings at any time wanting to put on the website, where there needs to be a policy that there's some sort of vetting that goes on. And I would like to bring up one of my concerns at a workshop where we have time to contemplate and develop a policy for that. So I'd be more than happy to do that.
That makes sense.
But, and to me, I don't mind having them stored in a hard drive folder where the access to those documents has to come through a public record request where we can review them for disclosability versus, yes, they automatically go right to a website where anyone can access them.
Yeah. There's a couple different issues here we'll have to address in that policy.
Okay.
So
All right.
Staff will develop a proposal and come to you for feedback.
Okay. Did you have anything else,
But,
Commissioner Haxel?
but what was presented today, which was substantial and concerning, is that going to go on the website?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And I forgot to ask this question when we were talking about the E7, which was the public master payroll.
Master payroll.
Could you, or would you need direction from a consensus of the board? I would like to see what the total increase was, because that was for the SEIU increase, and I'd like a dollar amount from that increase, what that increase constituted in dollars, so that we'll know and the public will know.
Question.
I can resend that to the board. I believe when we adopted the contract, I remember I gave a dollar increase, and you might remember this. I'm still chagrined because I made a mistake on it, and I said it was.
It was only off by 100% or so. It was no biggie.
Yeah. So anyway, so the board has seen that before, but if the board wants to see that again,
I would like to see it, and I'd like the public to see it.
Okay.
Is that a consensus? Is there,
that
I mean,
for
That's fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
I think it was 30-something.
It's 40-something.
40-something, okay.
What's another 10 or 20,000?
Well, that's not the attitude anybody has here, I don't believe. Hard work went into that.
And I've spoken, that's another question for Minister Schur. I spoke to you last week on the minutes and my concern that, you know, if we can get those so that we can review because they're going to be substantial before the Budget Committee meeting. I understood at the end of last week that they were going to, one was complete some time back. The other one was estimated to be complete last Friday, I understood, and I still haven't seen them.
Yeah, I talked
email.
to Jamie yesterday, Jamie and Brenda actually. Brenda is helping her review them and look at them.
Okay.
And they were working on it still yesterday afternoon. I'm well aware of the request from the Budget Committee to review minutes beforehand.
So do you have an estimate at this point when we may expect the 2 documents for the Budget Committee?
Do not.
I have a question. If one set is complete, could those be provided?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for both sets to provide one. Anyway.
We can only read one at a time anyway, so.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be substantial. That's the reason that I'm asking. These aren't going to be 3 or 4 or 5 page documents. I think you'd mentioned, Administrator Schroeder had mentioned to me it was in the 20, 23, 24, 25 pages at that point just for one document.
Just while we're talking about Budget Committee minutes, the concept of approving minutes, if you weren't at the meetings to approve a minutes for a meetings, you're supposed to have gone and watched the tapes of the meetings so that you can then, when you're voting on the minutes, know that they represent an accurate representation of the actual meeting. So if any members of the Budget Committee are listening and you get minutes and you weren't at the meeting and you want to vote on the approval of them, you need to attend the meetings or need to view the old Budget Committee meetings. So,
Commissioner Boyce?
Carl King was here almost all the time, but he did have one phone call in. Would that disqualify him for voting?
No, because he was at that meeting by phone.
Good.
So,
okay.
Right. Or he would just have to watch the tape of that one meeting.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's not a hard fix. It could require some detail, and as you mentioned, most of the Budget Committee for both sets of minutes is the same, or at least a quorum of them. And then I think it'd be Bill who'd probably have to view some meetings from the one he wasn't at if he wants to vote on them or if he's needed to vote on them. Sure, good.
I'm disappointed that we don't know yet when the minutes will be provided. But another one, and this is off and to a planning department. I'll just ask the planning inspector on that. My last thing here is
Planning inspector?
Oh yeah, this is a whole nother. It doesn't need to come up in this.
Sure. I just don't think we have a planning inspector.
Well, the building inspector.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Good.
He's a building official, isn't he?
Probably, yeah.
We got it now.
This is on ORS 294-250, and that is when I was first. It's a requirement of a municipality to publish certain accounting records of expenses and expenditures, and it's pretty detailed. It's pretty neat because they're created anyway out of this, just the accounting function. And I had requested, this is a few years back, it's accounts payable over $500 is typically the title of it, and it could be 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 pages depending upon the size of the municipality. I think in the county's case they were around, well, here's 12 pages. There is a requirement per Chapter 294, and I say on 294-250. I would like to see, because I'm not sure, I guess a request for, again, Administrator Schroeder, it's a short section, less than page, but it's very specific on the minimum requirements. And the easiest way to concur with all these requirements is by far, in my opinion, and you can see what you think, to put it on the website, the county website. Because if you don't do that, some of your other options are, you can put it at public libraries, you can post it in the courthouse, but there are other notice requirements that are very specific, and I don't know that we're doing that currently. including, posting the notice in the paper every month, with specific things. I just don't think that's been done. I would like to see, and I think the easiest way to comply with this requirements and get more accounting information out for the public to view if they're interested. And that's why I'm looking at one of the, never mind. To place it on the county website. But if you could maybe review and get back, just with your comments, maybe in your comment period on this at the next meeting on the November 7th, what you think?
I'll review.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, Commissioner Boyce, you have something to report?
First, Madam Chair, thanks for recommending the stool or the whatever upside down trash can. It's making a difference.
We just pass it around
I haven't
each
had that
campus
much pain, but it's
in order.
interesting. For our Great American Tsunami Escape, I've contracted with John Jesuit to get a hand truck to get me out tomorrow, okay? Because I'm not going to be moving very fast.
Think you're going to get worse?
Yeah, no, it's just the third day. For whatever reason, yeah, I'll spare you details, but thank you for asking. So each time I think I'm going to do a report, I'm going to keep it short, and I do my best, but I feel obligated to report to the board and certainly the public, that great number that is tuning in here. But I think I can go fairly quickly here. I'm working on a lot of different projects, as you know. I just agreed to be on the Travel Southern Oregon Coast board. I'm not even sure if it's a board. We're having a meeting today. I'm going to call in. It's abandoned. The only reason tourism has been my background for a lot of years. And the only reason I hesitated a little bit is because while tourism is a very important component of our economic comeback, our standard of living, solving some of the problems we have, it's not the end all. Growth is pro-growth and pro-problem solving, but I think I hope I can contribute to this. So it's very hard to say no to Commissioner Cribbins from Coos County. She is just very effective in her work up there, and she's asked me to join, and it is primarily Coos and Curry County combined. And we originally had a presentation, you may recall, with John Paul Bowles, who was working with, at that time, Director Carolyn Johnson, and I think they made some good progress on this, so I'll give you a report next week. When I had my, I'm biased for Curry General, I guess there's no surprise to that, but when I had my leg fixed late Sunday night after the big fire flare-up, I just want to give a report that, in fact, I'll just read a couple very small paragraphs that I wrote to a friend. This is on the county website, so I don't know if it's personal or county. I hope it qualifies for, I believe it does county business, but by the way, I had the back of my leg sewed up, 34 stitches, ankle x-ray, etc. Sunday night visit. Of course, I'm biased for Curry General, but Dr. Nyman, Andy, John, Joss, and Julie were absolutely awesome. There's no possible way the emergency room visit could have been improved. Yes, I'm an elected public official. That is, however, irrelevant, as there is no question in my mind any patient would have received that exact wonderful and professional care. And I went by there to the library yesterday, and that whole parking lot was full. And they've had a couple very good months. Been following the board very closely. And Brian Grumman, by the way, is very tuned into what's going on. And they've had, I won't give figures, but I could quote what he said, which I think is very trustworthy, but they're getting their bills paid, and we just hope that continues, and we believe it will. Somebody here today mentioned sod. I went on a 5-hour workshop field trip with the BLM in South County yesterday. Friday. The days are kind of a blur lately, but anyway, it was, when you see what happened to the Checo Bar fire, the devastation, and you're able to actually see their genuine frustration as well with the regulations that they're required to operate under, And on this field trip, you combine the fire devastation along with the sudden oak death issue, and you know, it was just interesting to see their expertise and have a very good give and take, and to see their commitment to try and keep this disease that affects 100 different plants isolated within Curry County, because if it gets out, as you have read and reviewed over time, it's not going to be good for Oregon. So that was a very informative time spent. We left at Brookings and went up in the straight east there, the South Coast Mill, which happened to be the best road. So I'll give you an additional report on that down the road. The BLM, by the way, only has 13,000 acres in Curry County, but they lost 6,000 in the fire. That was the other stat I wanted to offer the board there. And then I'm going to read a couple small paragraphs from Mike Robinson, who is the head of Goose Forest Protective Association under the Oregon Department of Forestry. He was here 9 years back in the mid-'80s through the mid-'90s, and he's really a top-notch firefighter, and we have spent a lot of time with him and Supervisor Murph George, and we're going to be spending a lot more time together. There's almost a spirit of apology here in that, first of all, Supervisor George was not happy with the amount of equipment and people that started going out of this fire beginning about last Friday. We had that great weather. I'm at Brookings in this sod field trip. It's the first time since the 1st of August, fire started the July 15th, that I wasn't at a 6:30 morning meeting. I'm not bragging or anything, I felt a tremendous obligation, what I learned. I welcomed 9 different 2-week teams relating to this Klondike fire. I just learned how much more I have to learn. I believe that we're going to have a period now that I'm going to say kind of a little prediction, and maybe it's more based on hope than reality, but I think we're going to have a few years where we probably won't have a main fire again. Certainly, hopefully not a mega fire, which is also, as you know, 100,000 acres plus. Some people joke or a little tongue-in-cheek there and say, well, there's nothing left to burn. And that's not true, but sometimes the reality of how much land we have lost is rather overwhelming. So here's the paragraphs from Mike Robinson. Yesterday, and this was written, actually I think this was written yesterday, but I want the public to know how dedicated he is, and going along with that is the future policies that need to be changed. And it's just not the Forest Service or the BLM. It's a portion of the radical environmental movement that has hurt this county almost beyond measure, and they're doubling down. Good morning. Yesterday was a day of regrouping after the large fire run on Sunday. Information gathering, updating, securing resources, intelligence sharing, and building a plan made for a busy day. These are all things you can do on the day after a fire makes a big runner, in this case, almost a return. The fire ran right at 5,500 acres on Sunday afternoon. The worst day we had, by the way, was September 8th, and we lost 7,500 acres in one day. As far as I know, and the detail and following of this, I mean, that's like going from here to Nasika Beach in a square. That's how much in one day. It's just staggering what it's doing to our future. And part of the frustration, of course, is a lack of timber supplies from the burn salvage. And then you add to that, if we don't have timber harvest contracts, then we don't have money to reforest. So a lot of people never thought they'd hear me say this, but I'm going to be lobbying for additional Forest Service budgets throughout the country, but especially as it affects Oregon and Curry County, Southwest Oregon, because we have got to go back to forest management away from fire management. And I think there's some very good people involved in that. One more quick paragraph. As a result of this big run, several efforts are in play. The State Fire Marshal is back indefinitely, so this is absolutely contained. And he's brought a crew with him, and that's kudos to the governor. I mean, he was here that Monday morning, and I had breakfast with him, and it's just amazing, the effort. But again, everybody's feeling bad because that 2 days, Friday and Saturday, maybe even a little bit of Thursday, we all kind of watched the equipment go out of the county, and that was a mistake, and I'll certainly take my portion of any blame that needs to be assigned there. This provides 24-hour coverage of structures in the community. It also allows command staff personnel to be unified with a federal Type 2 team, which, by the way, this team we have here now is a Type 2. A Level 3 evacuation is in place. You heard the sheriff talk about that. I'll skip a line or two. On Sunday evening, as mentioned earlier, a structured task force from Coos and Curry counties mobilized and worked throughout the night and late into yesterday afternoon protecting the Agnes community. I asked the sheriff about when he got to Lobster Creek, headed up that night, because I'd come down to meet this new crew, again, the 9th team. So I'm going back up, see if I can maybe get a few of my things that were somewhat at risk, but it wasn't a big deal. I just have a cabin. It's nice, but it's nothing special. And so anyway, when you come around the corner of Lobster Creek, the glow is just absolutely unimaginable. And I really thought we had lost Agnes. I said, there's no way I'm even going to get up there. I did get to my cabin, and the information we had from the time I was at the Instant Command Center at the fairgrounds that afternoon late, welcoming the team, was 2 miles off. So what made the news supervisor so upset was whatever communications breakdown there was between Team 8 and Team 9 through that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning when they transitioned, something went wrong. And we knew the winds were coming, and we were warned. We just, right now it looks like we've landed on our feet. We've lost a lot more territory, but Agnes, I honestly thought it was done. I'm happy to report that I think, again, we're okay. And anyway, I just want to highlight that Mike Robinson is just, we're extremely lucky to have him. He lives in Coos Bay now because I always give him a bad time that it's not Coos Forest Protective Association, it's Coos Curry Forest Protective Association. I think you have this. If not, I would encourage everyone that can hear me to read this. So at the AOC meeting last Monday, and I think I can tie this into one kind of final mention here, Madam Chair. You may have received also, I think you probably didn't, but Oregon, just a quick highlight here, or title, Oregon wildfire costs hit record high of $514 million in 2018. That's $500 million for a state that has less than 4 million people. The reason I highlight that is because what I communicated to the AOC board and all the other people who were there at the meeting on the 10th or whatever it was, when you look what happened at the fuel in California, and here's why this is important, why I think it's imperative that I take the time right now, and I'll be doing this more because I feel irresponsible if I don't. I mean, we have our forest there in Flores Lake, and it's at risk. Every forest is. Port Orford burned to the ground in the late 1880s, abandoned twice. So, you know, when I talk to the board, it's hard to give a presentation without trying to sound like you believe you're an expert or something. But in just simply saying what has happened in California, the 2 worst years in consecutive years ever, and they don't have 1/100th of the fuel we have in Oregon. And so my concern is we haven't seen anything yet. And when you look at the full legislative session coming up, after the first of the year, the end of January, and everybody's scrambling for budgets, and they have gone for I don't know how much. I'm going to take a wild guess here, $100 million over what they probably budgeted for. And the state fire marshal is part of the state police budget, by the way, so that's not even included in that. There's going to be a heck of a battle, and if they're not ready because they have to make cuts or they don't have enough funding, And it connects very well with the coordination between the U.S. Forest Service. They contract all the firefighting in Oregon for the Bureau of Land Management. And I hope they do that eventually with the Forest Service. Forest Service doesn't put out fires. I think they have good intentions for the future and see the great need to change policies, especially our supervisor. But I'm going to just be encouraging, and what I encourage the AOC board, we have got to lobby for them to have full budgets and then some. Or we may, I don't know how to predict or what will happen, but the fuel in Oregon is off the chart. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And so we've got to push. We've got to push. And I hope anybody that hears me wants to write a letter to the governor and the Senate President, the Speaker of the House. It's critical. What I have then on the difficulties AOC, Administrator Schroeder, I could do that. These are notes I took on the 10th. And, you know, I think they're making some very good moves to overcome and correct this whole thing. I could read my notes, but I can put that off to our next general meeting if you prefer.
Okay.
You're talking about the road fund loan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm happy to do that. Yeah, that's all I have then. If you would like to delay that.
Okay, going from fires to garbage. I've attended the waste and recycling meeting, and some good things for the county. I was able to negotiate a 20% discount on any old RV that we have to take to CTR disposal. And this is the same discount that the trash dogs get. And quite frankly, unless you ask, you don't get. So I was happy to see that. Also, any old paint can be recycled at Ace Hardware or Gold Beach Lumber for free. I think that's an important thing for people to know. CTR will not be hauling yard waste over to White City because it could spread gorse, sudden oak death disease, and other noxious weeds. So what's going to happen is they'll be burning the yard waste instead because it has to stay within the county. We also need a citizen from South Curry County to be on the Curry Solid Waste and Recycling Committee to fill the seat of John Brazil. And also recycling is still a big issue. CTR is currently paying $60 materials. Previously, we were paid about $100 a ton. So now we have to pay. China used to take all of the recycled materials from the U.S., and we do not have the proper infrastructure to handle these materials. All of those factories and so forth are gone. So this just isn't a county issue, but it's a global issue that we're going to have to take care of. So that's it on that. The transit committee's coming along great. We got our plan okayed today, and we'll be improving the number of times that people can go on the bus, etc. in Curry County. So that's it for today. 3 minutes. Yay. So this meeting now is adjourned.
Do we have to pay tariffs on, or did China have to pay tariffs on the trash? Or
No, they used to pay us to take our waste. And now they won't take it because we were sending